Call the Charter Revision Commission special meeting to order for January 30th, 2025. And can we go around the room, or Sheila go?
Sheila Bailey, Town Clerk.
Nikki Price,
Lou Fiore.
Bill Dumar, Tom Cremona,
Mike Ledward.
Anne Marie Nasuda,
Saxononi.
Bob Corsetti.
Laura Anderson.
And Ken Nelson. And just so everybody is aware, tonight is being recorded and it will be on ETV. The council will make a decision about all future meetings. I believe Monday night they should have the budget for us. But Chris was kind enough to get Alex to come in tonight and record the meeting.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Next is approval of minutes for January 23rd, 2025.
Yes, I'll second it.
Okay, motion is made and seconded. Are there any comments? Go ahead, Lou.
Just one quick one. I'm not making the even change, but on the top of page 3, it says the majority of councilors. I think it meant to say majority of commissioners.
It did.
Yeah. So I'm not going to make a minute, but I just wanted to make that point. That's probably what it should have said.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments, corrections, or concerns?
I thought they did a great job, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you, Laura.
Very impressive.
Sheila?
Like, this is a team effort.
That team effort failed because I said, I had to be me to say council.
Good job.
And these meeting minutes are currently online?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Seeing no more further questions, all in favor of the minutes? Opposed? Abstentions? It's unanimous, thank you. Next is the town attorney's correspondence. Sheila will go over what the town attorney's come up with up to this point.
Okay, I gave you everyone a copy of my request for the town attorney opinions to make sure that when you read them that you understood, that I understood them the way you intended to, the way you meant them. And then the town attorney got back to us with a partial answer. So he answered in full the issue of whether a town employee can serve on the council. And so those two opinions are in there. They're at the back of your packet. The very first section, the two that he reviewed is whether the only council could only hold one elective office. And he answered it from the perspective of the General Assembly, that there are no laws prohibiting that. So the General Assembly certainly wouldn't kick someone out and say you have to resign from the council, you know, you've got to choose. So the issue that he is still working on is whether or not we can put in the charter that only elective offices for here, for the town of Enfield. So you couldn't, or he's also looking at whether we can, as a town, state in the charter that we are saying that they cannot be a state rep or have any other office. So it doesn't necessarily, he's still looking into whether it can be another elective office within town or if we have the power. And so he's got to look back at all of the laws, and there's a lot of them that govern charters, whether we have the power to pass in our charter once it goes to referendum that our elected officials cannot hold any other office. So that is still, it's only a partial answer. But I gave you everything in your packet so you would be able to look it over and read it. I know it came in very late today, and that's why it didn't come early. I didn't have it in the packet earlier.
All set?
Yep.
Thank you, Sheila. So let's go to number 2, municipal elections. And if we're all in agreement, we can remove all elective officers shall hold only, that the town employee cannot hold a position on the town council because the law says we cannot put that in the charter, and then we'll hold off on the elective officers holding one position until we get his final answer. Do we have consensus on that?
I'm sorry, you lost me. I was reading. That's my fault. Yeah, I'm sorry. If you could do that again, please.
So the town employee can run for office in Enfield, whether we put it in the charter or not. So let's just remove that because that was one of the questions. And the second one is, can they hold more than one elected position? Well, we don't have a finite answer yet. So let's just keep that where it's at right now until we get the final answer before we decide on that. Everybody good? Go ahead,
Yeah,
Bob.
my question here, it says one elected or appointed. All right, I know we're talking about elected officials, but I think at the last meeting, when I was just reading through the notes, there seemed to be some, I don't know if a consensus came up to be, if somebody's appointed, are they still allowed to be appointed to another commission?
There was a consensus at the last meeting. If you look on the bottom of page 1, there were 2 suggestions for that change. One was that all elected officers shall hold only one
Right here,
elected
Bob.
office
On
at
the
position at the
spreadsheet.
same time on the spreadsheet. Yeah, sorry, Bob, I wasn't clear.
All right.
And then the second suggestion was the long one about elected and appointed and employee, and that's the one that the mayor was talking about.
Okay, all right, so, and
Passing out.
then we're gonna be waiting on the
The one on page
Further-
1.
Opinion from the town attorney regarding more than one elected official.
Yep.
All right.
Okay, everybody good? Okay, so we're gonna flip the page and we left. So we left off on, we finished page 1. Everybody agree?
Except for the open item.
Except for the open item, yep. So we're gonna start at the top of page 2. And that is 5, altering district boundaries. Alter the boundaries of the council districts by resolution.
I'm sorry, my page 2 has eligibility and vacancies.
Right, mine too.
No,
He's
Page-
5B.
page 2. So we're on
Page
5.
3?
Yeah, well,
Page 3?
yeah, it would be page 3.
Oh, no.
I'm sorry.
Your page 3 is
My page 2 is eligibility.
3.
3 is eligibility.
No, page 3.
Are you working off the new document she gave us tonight?
I'm working on 5B.
Okay, you wanna look at page 3, bottom right-hand corner.
But I
page-
guess my point is we never finished page 2.
Well,
We still have some,
On the flip side,
we still have some open items, I guess is my point. Yeah, which is fine, I don't want us to skip over anything, I'm just doing this to be, which is the eligibility ones.
Those are the eligibility
Yeah,
ones right
yeah,
there. This
yeah.
is the document that you just gave back to me.
Yes. Yeah, okay, so but Ken skipped all the way to here.
No, we did this one. This is any town council member who violates. We talked about that last
That
time,
had to be for
violating.
review. That had to
Right,
be
and that's
reviewed.
still
Okay.
being
I mean, Ken did
reviewed.
mention it, I guess, that's right, so that's
Okay,
still
and
for
then
review.
this is, we talked about not removing the
Yeah,
enforceable,
yeah.
so we finished that page.
No, we
and
didn't, because these parts here were never decided on, they're still open.
That is still at town attorney review.
Right, okay,
That's
so
part
that's,
of that letter I
okay.
gave you with all my questions for town
so,
attorney.
okay, I just want to make sure we're going the same way.
okay, so on the bottom of page 2, that last section is still being reviewed by the town attorney. Yep.
Yeah,
Okay,
thanks,
perfect.
thank you,
Everybody all set?
you're all set.
So now we're gonna go to the top of actual page 2, number 3.
Altering district boundaries.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay.
Number 5 is altering district boundaries. After the boundaries of the council district, or altering the boundaries of the council districts by resolution approved by a majority of electors voting thereon at town referendum. Somebody mentioned replace with by resolution approved by the majority of the town council. And the current language is,
It's by town council and it goes to referendum.
Here on your chart.
Current language is resolution
Yeah.
approved by a
Yep,
majority
got
of
it.
electors voting thereon at a town referendum held for that purpose.
so this is to remove the voters' say on boundaries and giving it solely to the council.
I mean,
Questions?
I'll speak a little bit on it, just to give some history after, And on this one here, I'm basically, I'm mixed, but I gotta be honest with you, I have co-written 3 redistricting plans in front of various town councils over the last 40 years. And in most cases, except for the last one, they've been accepted. The council's been fine. It was never any political. Usually it's a Republican and a Democrat working together jointly without any politics involved, with some council liaisons, and maybe a staff member helps a little bit from the planning department, help us do GIS data. And usually when the recommendations come from that little committee, it's agreed upon by the council, and it goes out for the people to vote. I mean, it's really up to you whether you want to still have the people involved, or whether you believe that's council can take that without their approval. It's as simple as that.
How did they go, Lou? The 3 you were on?
Well, the 2 passed without a problem. I mean,
And
yeah,
what about the third one?
The third one, the council, for other, decided not to accept our recommendation, so didn't have to do anything.
So it didn't go to the voters?
Didn't even go to vote. So it only goes to vote if you change the boundaries.
Right.
And
Just to refresh my memory,
yeah,
is there a public hearing
yes,
that's involved?
yes.
Okay, so I know that we did not approve this last district hearing. Didn't have to go to a public hearing, it just stopped at that point.
Gee, I don't remember what you guys did after
Because
that.
you didn't send it to referendum.
Right, we did not send it to
Right,
referendum.
you squashed it before it even got to that point.
Yeah, I don't quite remember, Bob, you're probably right, yeah.
Okay,
So,
I just wanted to
It's really,
clarify
you know,
that, yeah.
no, I
Whether you want the
appreciate it.
people involved or not, you know.
Right, and I would never take the voice away from the voters of Enfield. I think, Lou, your explanation was spot on. And I think when something goes to the voters where both parties or all parties are in agreement, it tends to sail right through. That could become an issue depending on who the majority party is on the council. So let's eliminate that and let the voters use their right to make a decision whether or not we're gonna change what district they live in. Certain people that may be bordering District 3 and District 2 may have a problem if they get shifted from District 3 to District 2 or vice versa. So, again, I'm not in favor of changing the language. I believe it should stay at the referendum. Following like what Lou said, the committee sends it to the council, council makes a decision, and then if the council agrees, it would go to referendum.
Can I ask a clarifying question? Sorry, go ahead, Bob.
No, the only thing that I'm gonna say in regards to this, I just think that it just follows along with, things that's approved by us, goes to the voters, so I'm okay with that also.
So Bob and myself are saying keep it the way it is. Zach?
I am also in favor of keeping it
And
as
Ronnie?
Yep.
Mike?
Lou and I disagree on many things, but I think this one I agree with him. I would actually even go so far, because I agree with you, the council shouldn't be able to squash it before it gets to the voter. That's my issue with this. You're 100% spot on. Redistricting is probably, and again, across the country, the most corrupt form of government. And I thought, I was part of that committee with you and the Republican Register of Voters, excuse me. You guys were professional. I thought you were, in my opinion. I thought the vote was wrong. And I agree with you. If this, again, we were talking about how we want our government to be. I think it's okay to council to vote yay or nay, but it still should go to the voter. So even if the council says, no, we're against it, that's fine, but it still should go to the voter, because to your point, the town is changing. It's changing based on how we're setting our housing, everything. We're redistricting schools. We're doing a lot of different things, and yet here we're saying, well, the town squashed it, and I thought the plan was very fair and even, and there's still, I think, a little bit of inequities as the plan sits today. So I agree with you. I would actually even be willing to go one step farther, saying regardless of the council vote, I think they have a right to vote on it. It still should go to the voters. That's just my two cents. So I agree with the language the way it is, and I'm willing to take it a step farther.
So let me ask either one of you. So you said you were on the committee 3 times for redistricting.
Yeah.
Who establishes the committee and what really sets the boundaries to kick that off?
Sure. Well, every 10 years, you have to take a look, you should take a look, I'm gonna say half, you should take a look at your vote, your 4 council districts to see if they are equitably distributed by population.
Same as the charter?
Same, yeah, this charter basically
Okay,
states
so
that.
this is this, that's the same, it's by
It's
statute.
by charter, and I think it's state statute also has it in there, I'm not quite sure on it, but I think that by state statute kind of mandates that also. So
Okay.
basically, the council appoints a commission. The first time I did it way back in 1982, there was like 15 of us on there. Then when I did it again in 2002, there was only 4 of us on there. It's pretty similar to this last time. The council appointed myself and Tom Kissel, the Republican registrar, and I think you were the liaison. I forgot who else was the
It was me and
liaison.
Cindy.
Cindy.
Yep.
So basically, no offense, Mike, but Tom and I did a lot of other.
I didn't do anything, right, you did the
Yeah.
work, trust me.
Using the census data. You use the census data to create the data you need for how many people live, people, not party, you don't look at party. And I can assure you, and none of the commissions I ever was on, did we ever look at how many Ds are in this district versus ours, and it was strictly by population. And we basically, our whole goal is to balance the 4 council districts within reason. You can be like 1,000 off or whatever have you. You don't have to be, it's never gonna be precise. And then we come with recommendations for district changes to balance the population. It's as simple as that. But the council appoints the mayor. They can have as many as they want. So that's a little brief history.
All right, thank you. So Mike, what if the committee that sends it to the council votes not to redistrict? Does it still go to the council and go to the voters?
I think the answer is yes. I think our role, if I remember, Lou, correct me, our role is just to make sure they asked us for a little guidance when they were, to his point, trying to balance really the lives of the voters. And we, hey, that's a good idea, maybe we should do this. We just gave recommendations.
Right, but if the committee says, we're good.
I don't think that committee, similar to like how we run our subcommittees, right? I think that's one of your, that I should, like as a liaison, I should be able to tell the whole council, oh, no, it's great, trust me, right? I think, that's why I'm saying I'm willing to go to that next step, even the kids should go to the council.
Right, but what I'm getting at is, if the committee says we're good with the districts the way they are,
Right.
there really wouldn't be a next step.
Right,
Right.
We
So-
came that close this time.
Right, so
I
what
see what
I'm,
you're saying, yeah.
right, so what I'm getting at is at that point, are you willing to leave the decision of that in the committee's hands where the council or the public don't have a say?
No, I think it's still, that's why I don't want to take the power away from the council.
Right.
I don't disagree. What I'm saying is, if the recommendation is, I guess that's where it gets touchy here, right? Yeah.
Now you see, so
Yeah.
if there is no recommendation
Right.
and the council agrees, then it should stop right there, because then it's a waste of money to change it. Now,
And if it's going to referendum, the council would need to set the question.
Right.
Right.
Committee can't set the question.
Right.
We can help you set the question, but we
Right.
can't set the question.
Yeah.
so how about if we, regardless of the decision of the council, it must have a public hearing?
That's fair. That's fair
Okay,
compromise, yeah.
so if no changes are warranted through the committee,
Yeah.
the council still sets a public hearing.
Agree. I think that's
What do you
fair.
guys think of that?
I think
It'll
that's,
save,
yeah.
it'll save the
Yeah.
money on a referendum, and we're all in favor of that?
Yeah.
Mike?
No, I think it's a fair compromise. I think that was
Yep.
my only point. I agree.
Sure.
I actually think the voters should have a say in how the districts are set up.
Or not?
Or not, right?
Right, if, she is set that the
Yeah.
district needs to be changed,
Yeah.
she should have a chance to come sell it to the council.
Yeah.
So,
Do you want me to put prior to the vote of the council, a public hearing shall be?
yes.
Yes, that's actually, thanks Sheila.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Lou's explanation was spot on too, by the way. Yeah.
And then we're removing the referendum requirement.
No, I want to keep it.
No, we're
Keeping it.
leaving, all we're adding
You're
is,
just adding them, okay,
Just making sure the public has a say in it.
sure.
right,
Yeah.
with or without a referendum, it
Yeah.
must have a public hearing.
Okay.
Okay, also,
So after the public hearing, it comes back to the council for a vote. And regardless of how that vote goes, it goes to referendum.
No.
No, and if it gets defeated, if the council says no, then that ends it.
Ken offered a compromise, that's what I was suggesting, but then he offered a
Okay,
compromise.
just going,
right.
yeah, I was just going
Right.
along what your thought
Yeah.
was for,
Yep,
okay.
I'm good with it, yeah, I'm good with the compromise,
Okay,
yeah.
that's cool.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, so I just want to make one point too, is, Lou.
Yeah.
Your explanation on a lot of these things is valuable, not only to certain people in this committee, but everybody who's watching, because they don't understand a lot of what we're talking about. So please continue. I know you apologize because you think you're dragging on, but you're not.
I enjoy it a little, me and you go
Right,
back
you're
and forth.
not. You're being very informative to a lot of the people sitting here, and now we have an audience watching. So anything anybody can add, because remember, people watching haven't been here for 20+ years, in your case, 40+ years, so knowledge is key.
Lou, I worked out today, I'm ready to go.
All right.
All
Take care of
right,
that knee.
so we are all good with 5, everybody?
Yep.
Okay, now we're gonna move on to chapter 3, the town council. 1, the council, which shall serve without compensation except for, a recommendation came in, which shall receive a stipend of blank annually and the reimbursement amount to be discussed. Also see chapter 2, section 2. 1 is the commission interested? And 2, what would that amount be? There's no secret, both sides are having serious problems coming up with qualified candidates. The amount of time that council members put in to do what they feel is right, regardless what party and who you are, I think everybody has the same goal, and that's what's best for the town we love. So Enfield is one of the very, very few towns that council members receive nothing, not 1 cent. Our fire commissioners receive something. We have other boards and commissions that do, not all, but do receive some sort of a compensation. You know, here we are tonight, and, you know, I've had 3 meetings today, and it goes on. Bob, how many meetings you had this week? I'm not asking, but
I know.
so if you're gonna do the job as a council member and do it right, it takes a lot of time. 1, I don't know how somebody with a full-time job could even entertain being on the town council. We had a council member previous that we shifted a lot of committees and boards and stuff like that for them to actually attend. And then on the flip side, to have meetings like this at night to adjust for everybody's schedule, now we have town staff who won't be home before 10 o'clock. So, you know, and this isn't, obviously it would not be for the current council because this is at the election. So thoughts?
When we were going through the list originally, I had asked if we, you know, in terms of the amount, I asked if we could get some other information from other towns.
It's all over the place.
Right.
It is from, you know, some sort of a tax stipend to, you know, $30,000. Right, it ranges so, and then you've got to look at, you know, you've got to compare apples to apples. Enfield is not a strong mayor form of government. We pay our town manager a huge salary. I mean, well, that's up to interpretation, but, so Bob and the mayor, I'm not saying the mayor or deputy mayor should get anything other than what the other council members get, because people have to understand. Mike's mayor, Bob's mayor, I'm mayor, Maria's mayor, we're all equal sitting up there. Nobody has the final say. So again, you've got to take the chance on the elected official that was chosen is going to do their job to the best ability they can do it. And doing that takes a lot of time.
Because what I was struggling with, the reason I was asking that was, in order to make the position more attractive to people so that they would want to run for town council, it's gonna have to be a pretty decent sized number. Like, I don't think it's $500. I don't really know what to even think about. in terms of what's being really discussed here. Is it $20,000? Is it $10,000? I haven't even got a ballpark to think about.
So I would think the first step we need to make is if there is not consensus, and the answer is no, we don't need to worry about a dollar amount.
True.
So, and we can just move on. If there is consensus, I don't think anybody in this room is talking $30,000. But, you know, you look at printing and expenses like that, travel, you know, retiring. When you're retired, what's it gonna take for you to come in 8 to 10 times a week, all during the day, to make a change? Now, as a retired couple, maybe a $2,000 reduction on your tax bill while you're an elected official might just pique your interest. That, and I'm just throwing 2,000 as just $2,000. Laura has 2 kids at home. She's a stay-at-home mom. What's it gonna cost her for daycare for those children for all the time?
$30,000.
So you have to look at all aspects of it. I mean, and things change for elected officials when they're elected with their job, you know, what their demand on them, which makes it very difficult. And it really, the only employer that really is okay with an elected official leaving work whenever they want is the state of Connecticut.
I think the Board of Ed has to too.
What's
I
that?
think the Board of Ed has to too by state statute.
Has to,
Allow someone to be able to leave for.
right, no, that,
Yeah.
right. I mean, I shouldn't say the state of Connecticut. Go ahead, Bob.
No, the only thing that I'm gonna mention in here, it's gonna be very hard to compare, to say, okay, what would be an appropriate stipend for a counselor? Considering there's 11 of us, and even if you took that ballpark figure of whatever it might be, and once again, we are not in a strong mayor, we are in, everybody is equal, somebody's named this, somebody's named that. Until you're in this position, you do not know how much time and effort is involved. Now, there's meetings in the morning, there's meetings in the afternoon, there's meetings at night. We have all altered our schedules on a weekly basis so that we have made the commitment to be able to fulfill our duties as an elected official. It takes a heck of a lot of time to even think that, we all got involved with this without even thinking that we're not doing this for the money, we're doing it because we're trying to make our town better, all right? And so it's really hard, I don't know if it would be culture shock to even say that we're going to entertain an idea of this. An entertaining of possible reduction in taxes for your efforts, stipends for gas. I mean, we don't even get a cell phone. You know, so I mean, so this is something that we really have to put our heads together if we're going to entertain this idea. All right. I myself did not get involved thinking that I was going to be making a couple of cents, you know, for my efforts here. So for us to even be thinking about it, you know, that's something that we have to consider. Consider expenses for counselors somewhere along the way, you know, expense for a tax reduction within our taxes, and, you know, and a stipend. You know, what are we going to say? You know, that one counselor is going to get X amount and another counselor is going to get this. Is a district more important than an at-large? I mean, there's a lot out there. We're all equal.
Right, and that's why I clarified that right off the bat.
We are all
You know,
equal.
a lot of
Every
towns, the
single
mayor
one.
gets X, deputy mayor. No, in Enfield, everybody is equal. People don't believe it, but it is the absolute truth.
Yeah,
You've got 3 mayors sitting at the table right now, and upstairs, you got 11 mayors that meet in that office. So Are you all set, Bob?
Yes, I am. So, yeah, we'll let others.
Zach?
Okay, thank you. I respectfully disagree. I do not support the idea of compensation for council, and I would disagree. It says in Chapter 3, Section 1, except for the reimbursement of actual expenses incurred in the performance of official duties. So if the council is not utilizing that provision of the charter, I don't think that necessitates that we change the charter. I think there's a conversation needed about how we can view that in terms of expenses incurred, such as gas. I don't think it necessitates a change in the charter. I do agree that all 11 council members are equal, which is one of the biggest reservations I have with why we should be paying 11 council members all the same amount. We have 3 former mayors in the room tonight who have devoted a significant amount of time from your families and from your lives to do this job. But I've been around in politics here for 8-something years. There's a big variation from people that never see their spouses to people that come to 2 meetings and leave them early, and everything in between. So I feel uncomfortable with justifying a salary on that basis, that there is such a significant portion of elected officials over the course of recent history that I don't think have put in the effort warranted to receive a stipend. And I don't think I believe it was Mr. Cremona's point, it would be sizable enough to achieve the goal of attracting more talented candidates. And I also personally think that moving this item forward has the ability to jeopardize a lot of other good work that we're doing in this charter, because I just personally don't think it's going to go over that well with the voters, whether it was a 16% tax increase that they had 2 years ago or services that were cut this past year. The town has been clear. Our elected officials have been clear that the town is struggling. So I don't personally believe that us as a commission, that we have a mandate to go to the voters and say, the town is struggling. We as your elected officials, we need more. I think that's a challenging argument to make personally. I would note, and I had mentioned this to Mr. Crissati, is how is there a way that we could in some way, in some form, compensate the council in a way that I think would be productive rather than just writing a blank check. And I think this is unrelated to the charter, but it's an idea to have in mind when we're thinking about changing it, is the council used to go to DC, and that was a trip it was a costly trip, and expenses were paid for, and you went there and you learned something about how to be a better counselor and how to engage in better governance. And I think that was pulled away due to financial reasons. And personal, I would say, rather than have a conversation about compensation, have a conversation about sending council back on that, something that is worthy, it costs money, it's a good time, but you're actually taking something away, and that taxpayer dollars are being used to better you and your position in government. So that's kind of where I stand on that. I think we should exercise, and if we need a legal opinion on what reimbursements of actual expenses could mean in terms of how we could compensate, I think that should be explored. And then perhaps around budget time, council consider returning that trip. But I'm personally no on compensation.
Okay. Anne Marie?
I was looking at it more from not a flat dollar amount, or even, obviously this is a 10-year plan. You probably wouldn't want to put a flat dollar amount because you'd want to have something for inflation. I was looking more in the realm of a tax credit for the term that you are serving for, similar to what happens with our fire marshals and I think some other officials, that they are also getting a tax credit. Everyone that would be serving on the town council are living in the town, and this way everyone has to pay their taxes at some point. Certainly what that percentage is, I don't know. That would be up for discussion again if this was something that people were in agreement on. But yes, I think anything you do would help entice to get the right folks to try to participate more and put their name in the hat and try to be part of the town council and get elected. I don't think that that's going to be the sole reason. I think, as Bob said, that what's going to drive people is people who want to do what's right for the town, and that this is not going to be the sole reason. They're not looking to, this is not the get rich quick scenario, because there definitely is a tremendous amount of time that every single person plays on the town council. They're all on subcommittees. They're all involved with multiple meetings. They're all involved with caucuses and things like that. That take away from their personal time, their work time, and it's a commitment. And it's a commitment that they should be, it's an honor, of course, to be elected by your fellow town people to be on this, but it is a tremendous amount of work for them to do. And so I am in favor more of a stipend from a tax perspective for the term that you're serving.
All set?
Yes.
Mike, anything?
Yeah, this is where I have to agree with Zach, who I thought put it well. And again, I know there's well intentions with this, so I'm not judging anyone at all. But again, as we sit here, and I think Lou, you said a lot, we're looking down the road, future councils. In my beef, and I'll say this, it's just me with this argument, I'll say, look, I think it's I think we do it, the town council volunteering, I'm sorry, paying money and they're gonna get better candidates. Just look at the federal government, just look at the state government. And for me, the one thing I'll never forget in all my years of politics, after the pandemic and the legislature voted its authority away for almost 2 years, came back into power and gave himself a raise. And the point is, when you start paying, I don't care if it's $1, it's never enough, right? It's someone's gonna make an argument, I do that, and it's never enough. And I'm not saying that the folks who are supporting here, I'm not saying that's you. I'm saying down the road, that's what the debate's gonna be. Well, I do all these wonderful things, so I need another 10 grand. And then eventually we do get to a strong mayor form of government, because at some point, if a mayor or a councilor, we're paying them enough money, what do we need a town manager for? I mean, it gets to a point of that debate. For me, I just think once you open the door, and I think, I'm not saying, I know people are being well-meaning, so I'm not saying it that way. I'm talking here, I understand human nature, I see it right in front of my face, that's why I like term limits, because I mean, if we were gonna start paying people, then I would demand that we have term limits. Because that's what's wrong with Congress, because they get a pension, they get their health care, they get the best health care known to man in the country. State legislature, same thing, they get a pension, they should not be getting a pension to serve in the state legislature. And I'm not gonna get into the fire commission, whatever, I'm just saying, for me, this is just a fundamental, I think we do it so well in this town. I think the forms I stated, last being the form of government that we have, a manager, town council form of government, in my opinion, is the fairest and the strongest form of government we can have. If we start paying councilors, we start paying a mayor, we start paying a deputy mayor, we start paying board of ed, whatever it may be, I'm sorry, the quality of candidate is not going to improve. I'm sorry, and again, quality is in the eye of the beholder too, by the way. And for me, I have to admit, this is one of those, I understand the debate. I'm not judging on that. I understand there's well intentions, but once we open the door, it's future years down the road. Hey, we're only making $5 grand. We need another 10 grand. And then our budgets are so tight. I don't want to bring that in, because I think at some point in the future, it'll be about, again, the amount of money the councilor is being paid as opposed to the service that they're providing. And right now, it's about the service we're providing. And for me, that matters, but I understand the debate. I please hope no one's taking it. I'm not trying to say anything bad, I get it. I understand the fire commissioner argument too. I certainly get that's a fair argument. However, I agree with Zach. I think if we open the door, we start paying, I don't care if it's $50. At some point, someone's gonna say it's not enough. I wanna have $100. And then if it's not enough, it's gonna be, and at some point, there's never enough. It won't stop, and once you open that door, I think at some point our form of government will change, in my opinion, not for the better. Sorry, that's my opinion.
Okay. Anybody else? Tom?
Well, I have two quick questions, then I'll give a perspective, all right? First, is there any history about what these words in the existing charter were supposed to mean for the reimbursement of actual expenses?
Yeah, well, we used to get reimbursed, Zach brought up, I'm sorry. I think he was asking me about.
I was.
She was not yes too. Go ahead.
We used to get reimbursed. Zach brought up a very good point that unfortunately I was going to mention in my comments. We used to be able to go to the League of Cities conference, and basically the town, no, they're not our own private dinners, picked up the whole cost for that, the travel, the hotel, the conference thing. So we get reimbursed for that. Personally, I never put any reimbursement in for ink or paper or gas, but certainly there was a budget where you could be able to get reimbursed for your expenditures if they were legitimate and approved by the town manager. You were able to get reimbursed. I don't know if that account's still there, it might be zero in the budget, I haven't looked. So there is a mechanism for counselors to get reimbursed.
Now, when, Lou's 100% correct, but when the Washington trips happened, which I agree, to me, it was a networking event to know who you're serving with, and it makes it easier to look at somebody that you know a little bit about before we just go up and clash. And I think that's what's happened over the years on the council, is that because it happened the first term in March. We get elected in November. In March, we were in Washington. And, you know, you sit down and you have dinner, like Lou said. Now, the town did have set limits on how much your hotel, or no, because the town paid for the hotel, but dinner and stuff like that, no alcohol, no nothing. So it was strictly business. And I'm clarifying that so the people listening don't think that, you know, he went to Philomena's and had a $300 bottle of wine.
Oh, that's a wonderful restaurant, I've been there, yeah.
I was just there last
History
week.
why it was cut, when we got cut $8 million from the state of Connecticut, and we cut across the board.
Understood.
And we didn't feel it was right that we didn't cut our budget as well. So that's why it was cut.
Now I'll go to the other side. You're not saying it was for things like mileage per day to do regular meetings of council business?
I would not, well,
No, I'm just saying, was that?
I don't know if some councilors did in my 6 years plus I was there, but I never did that.
And it's not being done now by any council members now? Right?
Yeah,
Okay.
I would, like, so I'll say from like how we end up doing this at the state, like, I would not like pay somebody for their commute, right? But if they had to do something during the day because of their job, so like if a town councilor was going to and from meetings, I wouldn't reimburse them for that, but if they had to like drive somewhere for a special event like that, I would maybe consider mileage for, like, that's what we
Very
do.
helpful.
It just moved from 67 cents to 70 cents just for
So
everyone.
a Prague or a CCM meeting,
I got it.
if you had to go to Hartford, you'd probably be able to put your mileage in.
And my other question before I get my perspective is, whatever direction we head, are we making a 10-year decision? Is the only time this would be talked about would be when the charter is reviewed? There's no other mechanism where this could be discussed 4 years from now?
Well, they could start another charter commission, the council could start a charter
It
commission.
has to go
It
through
has to
this.
go through the charter.
Yes,
So one thing that Tom brought up is, you know, the term expense, that's pretty broad.
Yeah.
Because if Mike is an hourly employee and he has to punch out for 3 hours to come to a town council committee meeting, that's a huge expense to him. Is that reimbursable? And that's where I'm saying the cost to have somebody, now Zach, and you know, I tell it, Zach works for the school system and he's looking to become a teacher. Teachers get paid. So it costs him nothing to leave school and be in government, whether it's town, state, he continues to collect his paycheck. Most people don't. And they can't afford to leave, you know, 4 times a week. And so the definition of expense, does it cover that?
Well, Mr. Mayor, to that point, the state statute requires that anyone that works in the public or private sector, if they're serving in the General Assembly specifically, has the right to leave for duties. It does not specify that school districts or a town or anyone else has to be reimbursed. And for instance, for record, Mr. Kiner, who was a state representative and a teacher, had to have his salaries cut per diem before. He was not on paid time while he served in the legislature. You lose time, but they have the right to leave. That's not paid right to leave.
Okay,
Good
but
point.
okay, so then you even just back up more of what I'm saying, you don't even get paid. So what if you're going per diem, and we don't need to get into it, for you to go through their budget, you're gonna spend the next 2 months at the Capitol 14 to 20 hours a day arguing. So how, if you're out of work those 3 months that's why the state of Connecticut pays you a salary of, say, $40,000 to start. plus committees. As you're on committees, you get paid more because it's more time you're drawn away from your employer. Now, a lot of people starting out, they can't afford to do that. They can't afford to give up. You talk about, you know, a discriminatory way of doing business. You know, I'm self-employed. Every single time I have to come to this building, everything stops. So my family makes nothing for doing this. All I get is hassle and grief from Facebook. Now, I'm not talking about this for me because it's not going to affect me. But future people, if you want the young mind to sit at the table, they can't because they're starting their families, they're struggling. They can't leave work for hours and hours when we go through budget. You know, we're here 3 nights a week, plus our regular meetings. That's what I'm talking about. Most people can't afford to give up
But
their time.
I think that, to Mike's point, is I don't think you can set a dollar amount that is gonna be agreeable to attract a specific type of candidate. You could have a candidate who makes $120,000 a year, and the time they would give to be on this council is worth $40,000 of their time versus someone at McDonald's, and it's worth $100 of their time. You can't find a specific number that I think is gonna achieve your stated goal. And as I would still go back to my original statement, there's so much variation and requirements for how much you actually have to do as an elected official, and that you could, for instance, councilors could be stripped of their committees and serve on no committees, or committees that only meet quarterly and receive the same pay. So and that's just another reservation I have about that specific argument. I value the time and effort that you put in, but I think it's also an expectation here in Enfield, in the number of commissions and committees we serve, and organizations outside the government, that we are a volunteer town. That's how we've done business here, and I think we've been able to have good government here in Enfield without it. A lot of the towns that do pay people aren't necessarily towns that I would be saying, wow, they're the example of good government. New Britain pays them. Is that a good run town? Hartford pays their counselors. Is their government serving their people better than we are? I would argue not.
Can we?
So, I'll close quickly, which is, I hope each of you can appreciate that I've listened to every word you've said very carefully. My opinion is there's factors on both sides. This is not a black and white issue. But what is the final vote for me is to vote no. And my vote no is based on, it's hard for me to stand in front of anyone and vote yes for this, given what the last couple cycles of budget have been like. And that is the winning factor in my vote.
Okay.
That's how I feel.
Lou?
No, I think Mr. Dumont.
This is a tough one. I mean, I absolutely would agree that expenses incurred should be reimbursed. Now, you raised a good point about hourly. But I'm talking about, like, if you have to go to Hartford, you have to attend things like that, mileage is a no-brainer. I mean, I don't have a problem with that. I also agree, I'm not sure I'd like to see data on other towns, what they pay. And like you say, and what's the effect or impact of it. But I really think that, I mean, you guys are on the council, and I've always read the newspapers and those kinds of things. But until the last year or two, I started looking at the town website and looking at the different things. It's a tremendous amount of time, and I wish the general public would know that. I mean, it's just not sitting up twice a month at a council meeting, right? You're a liaison to so many committees, and you're telling me today about even a lot more meetings that I never even thought about. It's a tremendous commitment, but at the same time, I'm not sure an amount of money, you could offer money to two different people. One would jump at it, the other said, no, that's not enough. But it's really out of your commitment to the town to make it a better place to live. And it's really all about that. You want to recruit candidates, you need to find those people. The money isn't going to make them come, I don't believe. So,
All right, so we're looking in the room now, and I think there's consensus to nix this. So we don't need to waste any more time on it. And we're a democracy, and I can see the heads are all no. I mean, there may be a couple yeses, but again, majority rules. So I don't want to sit here and waste because, again, we don't need to worry about how much if we're not even going to get to that point. So everybody in favor, we're going to remove it?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Could I just clarify
Sure.
that we're removing the stipend as well as the second suggestion about the tax credit?
Yep.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank
you.
Okay.
So just one final comment. We are gonna still keep that, the second half of that first paragraph, reimbursement of actual expenses incurred
Yes, sir. Yes.
over the 2 years. To keep
No
that in
change.
there, no change.
But,
No
and if I may, just, I'm not gonna do my notes, and people have talked.
Bill had his hand up first, go ahead.
Just one question though, I don't know where that sits, but the tax credit that goes to seniors, does it go to the council?
No,
No.
Should we allow that? As
no,
basic-
because a
as
council
basic?
member cannot make a vote that financially affects themselves.
All right.
Right.
Can't happen.
So,
But in the sense of the way that thing was portrayed, is if you do, I don't know, was it 80 hours a year?
Yep,
That you can apply and
Right.
get that.
and that same council member,
Way beyond that.
that same council member can vote to increase that amount of money also.
That's true.
Can't do it.
Because they're the finance board.
Yep. So once they retire from politics, they can.
it's a different story.
Yep. Planning and zoning can, any of the boards can,
Yeah.
but not the actual board that set that law.
So if I can, I'm not gonna do my notes, because everyone else spoke,
Yep.
I'm looking at the three you on the council, so please take our comments into consideration when you do the budget. Take a look at that council expense, it's either, I'm sure you can increase that a little bit so that some decent reimbursement for mileage and things. And I would highly recommend, if you can, I know it's probably gonna be a tough, but all the budgets I've ever done, every year's a tough budget year. Please at least look at going back to the Conference of Cities conference, because it was a networking, not just with yourselves, which can pay big dividends. I can't tell you personally how many council I might never talk to if I didn't go to the conference and open up dialogue. And now, we can talk about this. But you learn, there's seminars that are given, and you can learn from other councilors or first selectmen from other towns. So I can't emphasize that enough to the three of you, and I'll leave it at that.
No, that's good.
Okay, so that's gone. Number 2, chair. Remove all references to the word chair and replace with mayor. Suggestion to elect mayor directly by ballot.
Those are two.
Yep.
So the two separate things.
Yep, so let's start with remove all references to the word chair and replace it with mayor. What about the chair of the Board of Education?
That's only under the council, though.
Oh.
We're only under the council. And
Yeah.
I believe, and I don't know, Lou may have the history behind this, but I believe this is because Robert's rules refers to chairs.
Right, and if you ask me, this is the best written paragraph in the charter. It should stay exactly the way it is, it explains exactly the way the council works. It gives the mayor exactly how the mayor performs in the town. Again, the mayor is the chair of the town council.
He's the voice, that's
Yeah.
it.
I mean, really, I'm sorry, I get the reference, the word salad, but in my opinion, this section is written fantastically.
I agree with you. Anybody disagree with that?
No, I will just say that, like, if we call it the mayor, I want to elect the mayor, but like, I agree, like, it's the chair right now, and like, that makes
Of the
logical
meeting.
sense. Yes.
So
Yes.
even if the
Pat's not
mayor
here.
wasn't gonna be at a meeting and neither was the deputy mayor, and they said, Council Ungary is going to be, she's the chair of the meeting.
Right, so Robert Rules takes care of
Yeah,
that.
because I'm
Okay.
chair,
Yeah.
title mayor.
Okay, so we got consensus to remove the first one. Now moving to the second, suggestion to elect mayor directly by ballot.
I'll say, I know I suggested that, and if we're not gonna call them the mayor in the charter, I don't need it, unless anyone else feels strongly.
Anybody else wanna fight this one?
The
No?
pitfalls for this are, there's benefits and pitfalls, so I
The
don't want to go
pitfall
there.
is you have a mayor in the minority
Right,
and nothing gets done.
that was my
So,
first thought, that's a catastrophe.
Yeah.
it was a good suggestion if the
Yes.
second part went with it. So next is add new section and renumber subsequent sections. Leadership committee.
Right.
Council leadership shall consist of the mayor, deputy mayor, minority leader, and town staff, and she'll set the agenda for the council meetings.
Majority chief.
So the current charter does not recognize leadership at all. The town manager sets the agenda. And we have the authority as a council to control the town manager only. If we don't like what he or she is doing, we have a right to change that position. But I don't think we have a right to undermine him or her on what they see as a priority on the agenda going to the councilors. And this has happened, and I know you're familiar with it, with council members going directly to town staff and demanding certain things get done. Council leadership, myself, minority leader, Bob, does not have the authority to direct the town manager to do anything without the voice of the council. And a perfect example was something as simple as recording these meetings. We pulled it off tonight because it's a one-time, but it will be on the agenda because it's gonna cost the taxpayers to record this meeting, because now, where does it stop? Because I've got other boards and committees now saying, we wanna be recorded too, and some of them don't need to be recorded, but they wanna be on TV. So we opened up a can of worms. I'm gonna say, we're gonna end up hiring one, if not two, permanent employees for ETV. So there is a cost to it. Do I think the people have a right? Absolutely, that's why these doors are open. We have to come out, we just discussed the amount of time we put in. So, I am not in favor of overriding the town manager. It goes back to what Mike said. It's the best run form of government. It gives him or her some sort of a protection from the council. Because even the majority party really should, on the floor, so everybody watching can see what they're doing and be transparent, instead of just having closed meetings behind doors, because we wouldn't even need to address the minority party. We could just run the town without them. And the residents would know nothing. Bob?
Yeah. So looking at that suggestion in that last statement, shall set the agenda for the council meetings. I'm thinking that, the council leadership, the mayor, deputy mayor, minority leader, we've all been in leadership meetings. We see the agenda that's there. There are certain things that are always on the agenda that is agreed upon. There are certain agenda items. And I think over the years, we've worked pretty good to eliminate what's correct to be on there and what's not. You know what I mean? So it's not us that set the agenda. Town manager comes in and says, okay, here we go. Then we analyze and see what's going to be presented for that particular meeting.
Right, but most of the agenda is what the council wanted previously is
Correct.
there. And what the town manager needs to do to run, Sheila needs money for digitalizing or whatever, that's, and he forms the agenda, appointments. Do you guys want them or don't you? And he'll take them off the agenda if we say no, but if the language here says we.
It's not us setting the agenda.
This language would be.
Well, that's why I'm saying eliminate that.
Oh, I agree.
Right, that's, yeah.
Laura?
I did just want to say, I do agree with defining council leadership with a minority leader in it particularly. And even as I think through this, right, like, one of my questions, and thank you for clarifying that, was like, okay, well, does the town manager get your input now? And if they get your input, spectacular. And then, of course, I think there might be some people who want to say, with input from leadership, but like, if I've got a town manager who doesn't know to get input from leadership, then like, they should be the town manager. So I don't want to like put that in here because that feels silly.
Right.
I agree.
So.
Yeah.
Right, and that's what I want to.
So you wouldn't want to just eliminate the word set
Yeah.
and put provide guidance?
No, I think it's
It's
just
unnecessary.
pretty
Yeah.
much, it's
That's what the council
understood.
does.
that
Feels like
that's what we do.
condescending, almost.
That's part of our purview.
But there is no minority leader in the charter.
Well, that's why we're asking
And
someone
I
else to
don't
put
think
it in
there's,
the charter.
is there a deputy mayor in the charter?
Yes, there is.
Yes.
Is there?
So that's why we're asking this to put a minority, that one statement in here chopped off in the section of the chair would satisfy that requirement by addressing the minority leader's position. It's-
It don't matter to me, we've
So basically,
always run this
so the
way,
base, the end of the chair would say, council leadership shall consist of the mayor, deputy mayor, and minority leader. Period.
Boom.
Boom. So now it's codified that there's a minority leader, and that's it.
I think Zach had his, go ahead.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, sorry.
I just had a question. So when I read this, it says council leadership shall consist of the mayor, deputy mayor, minority leader, and town staff, and shall set the agenda for the council meetings. So I guess the way I'm looking at it, based on the language that's written here, is it doesn't say that the town council has the authority to dictate to the manager, because there's a conjunction here saying, and town staff, and it also doesn't specify what town staff. So I don't see what the dynamic would be in terms of who sets the agenda, and is that something that would be handled under the policies and procedures of the council, because it's a subcommittee of the council, in which that is not necessarily an issue for the charter committee, because we are simply stating that it consists of the mayor, the deputy mayor, the minority leader, and
And-
town staff.
And,
It
yeah.
doesn't need town
Period.
staff,
Boom.
that's
Doesn't need
it,
town staff.
that's it.
You don't
Right.
need the
Right.
town
That was-
staff.
Right.
Doesn't need town staff.
That's what Zach,
Right,
Zach was actually, I'm sorry, I'm agreeing with Zach against. Sheila, this should be in our policy procedures, because we still have to follow FOI rules. So I don't think it's a charter, I think Zach's right, I think this is
I
more,
don't think it falls really under FOI either, because leadership
right, it's not,
has been ruled that
right,
it's
that's what I'm saying,
separate.
but that's why it was
Right.
under our policies and procedures.
It could very well go under the
And so,
policy.
to Ken's point, I think if there's a new council and a manager, and they work out a different arrangement, maybe
Then it's
whatever,
more
it's just,
flexible.
maybe it's just the mayor and the minority leader and the manager, whatever, I'm just saying, that's the way we've always done it, it's been the two, and I think it should be handled in our policy and procedures, not in the charter, if I think I'm agreeing with you on this. I think that's where it should be handled, because it's up to the council to how they want.
I don't know where this came from to know the backstory
I don't
of
know
it,
either, that's what I'm just
because
suggesting, right?
20, almost 30 years doing this, and it's always been done the same way,
Right.
always.
You're right.
I think there's again, I think but this actually didn't come from me, but I'm understanding where it's coming from. Take me for my word on that, I understand where it's coming from. It's a push to codify the minority leadership in the charter. I agree with you in what you're saying about your policies and procedures, but the next council can change the policies and procedures, and there are some of us that want to codify the minority leadership in the charter, so that can't be done. Thinking ahead, down the road, you mentioned that before, councils change, leadership changes, it's working today, doesn't mean it's gonna work tomorrow.
Town managers.
Town managers change, so I'm gonna get back to my suggestion, at the end of the chair statement here, all we say is, council leadership shall consist of the mayor, deputy mayor, and minority leader, period. That codifies it, it recognizes that there's a minority leader, there's nothing about agenda, there's nothing about anything, end of story.
So that was to my point, Louis, that whether the shall set agendas for council, because that's related to the regular procedures of that
Right,
subcommittee,
right.
which would be handled in
Right,
policy.
they don't wanna do that there, they can do that there, but this,
Doesn't need to be.
but this codifies the minority leadership, simple as that, end of story, done. Councils can't change it.
So are you saying?
I'm not accusing anybody of anything or
No.
anything.
Those three, if it's in the charter,
Yep.
those three people have the same exact say, which gives them more say than the rest of the council, because the mayor is the spokesperson for the council. That's it. Not the deputy mayor, not the minority leader. And there has been instances where the minority leader does overstep their bounds and go tell people that, Enfield's good with it, and it's never gone to council. And that is totally
Maybe
unacceptable.
leadership's not the right word.
Right, so do you see my
Yeah, I can see your
concern?
point, I see your point.
And I think that goes more, I think, Mike, that's kind of what you were
Right.
meaning,
I see the point.
That's all I'm saying, right,
Yeah.
I think we have to be
consisting
careful.
of the mayor and then the deputy mayor and minority leader under him, with those two having equal? Because, I mean, really, they do. Right?
No, minority leaders doesn't have the same rights to deputy mayor, absolutely not.
In
What
in-
rights
in
does-
leadership.
No, I'm saying, no, I'm
Right.
agreeing with you, they don't.
As the mayor.
But my point is, or my question in general is, when you're referring to this power dynamic related to that committee, this charter, the language that Lou is suggesting here doesn't specify that dynamic. It would be spelled out under your policies and procedures when you determine how you want that dynamic to work within that committee, correct?
Then it
As you
goes to
have
what Mike said,
As to any other
or
committee.
what Lou said. Any council can change that dynamic
Yeah.
any way they want.
Well, majority,
You know,
majority.
Right.
Just
Go
getting
ahead,
back to policy and procedures, and we do it at the end of every term.
Yeah.
That first week, pretty much, or the first few weeks, or the first month, we go through the policy and procedures. Is there any changes that are gonna be made, or are we gonna keep things as is?
Yep.
And that's usually taken care of in the first month. And if there's any issues throughout, then that group reconvenes to discuss whatever needs to be
Oh,
discussed.
I know how it works.
Yeah.
Again, it's, you know, somebody's putting, I think, a little bit too much power in, or they think they're in a stronger position by using the word minority leader or deputy mayor or mayor, because in Enfield, it means nothing. The only thing mayor means in Enfield is you're the first one to get torn apart on Facebook. That's it. You know, a ribbon cutting here or there, but
A few other things. You're right, though.
A few other things.
But to that, in respectful disagreement to that point, I think this doesn't empower the leadership to do anything. I just don't think that it does. But what it does say, to Lou's point, is it ensures that when the council has those leadership meetings, which do exist in the town of Enfield, and I don't think we're having a discussion about seizing those meetings
No.
and letting the town manager set the agenda and everybody finds out on Friday, all 11 councilors, that the minority leader, the person of the minority party, should have a seat at that table. I think that's the conversation that we're having.
Yeah, that's it.
We're not having conversations about that
Right.
leadership being empowered to do anything other than they already do. And right now, under your policies and procedures, they could decide tomorrow to do the same thing. If they want it, we're not giving any more power than that already exists. There's no implied powers here. Those would have to be explicitly listed. We're saying council leadership, no more than the title that we have of the mayor. We
Just
know
memorialize
the
it.
powers that come with that are zero. So I just think it's ensuring that understanding is when those leadership meetings take place, that includes the minority leader, member of a minority party, in conversations, not in powers.
Thank you, well put. Thank you.
what do you guys think? This didn't,
Yes.
I don't know. I mean, to me, it's 11 council members have the equal power. That's the way Enfield's written.
I feel strongly about putting minority leader in there, for one, a couple reasons. One was what Zach said, and two, to our previous conversations about Lou saying it's an agreement about how we're gonna run the town, right? There are some things, yes, I know technically everyone has the same amount of power, but also if we've been doing this for the last 30 years, what's the harm in just clarifying that, just write down what we're doing?
I agree with that.
I don't know much about the process, but I kind of assume, I guess by your comments, you get the agenda for Monday's meeting on Friday, correct?
Mhm.
But I would have thought that, say on Monday, or from a prior meeting, that things would be sent to the town manager, or all of you,
Right.
and saying, here's the things to consider for the next agenda. And then you take this group of majority, minority, and that, to look at what's on there. You've got the time is limited.
Wednesday.
No, the time of the meeting on your council. All right, which ones do we want to put on the agenda? So to me, it's a mutual agreement of what are we gonna consider at the meeting?
And that's what,
It's more than just 3 or 4 people, it's 11.
right, that's what we do on Wednesday.
Yeah,
The town manager will go through what he has
right,
and, adds things, subtracts things. Sheila doesn't have paperwork ready.
right,
When I say, what am I telling the council?
right.
And there's nothing to tell him, he
Okay,
nicks
all right.
it. So that's the prep on Wednesday. And then Friday, it goes public. Sheila posts it online.
All right.
And it comes to our houses or emailed to us Friday night.
So there are things that are brought to leadership's attention from counselors
Yeah.
to see if we could move forward with it, to have an agenda, or we have a discussion on the floor before it is brought to
Right.
to them for approval to be on the agenda or not.
All right,
So.
Right,
so
on the
there is-
floor. And
there
the
is
town
discussion.
manager, the way it's written is right now, to stick with what Mike's saying about the strongest form of government. That's what gives the town manager the power in this town to run it the way he sees until the council makes a decision to change it. Not me or Bob or me and Bob. It has to be 6 or more
right.
to change that direction. So, and that was a problem, things got a little skewed because certain council members were going in the office 3, 4, 5 times a day saying, this is what I want, this is what I want. That's not your role.
Right.
Because, what if Mike don't want it? He don't even know about it. And then all of a sudden it's on the agenda?
Right, right.
That's not fair. So that's why the process is set up to give the town manager the ability to say no.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think anyone's doing,
Oh, no.
go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say that I don't think this wording will give the town, infringe on the town manager's authority. I just think that you have to look at it as a government body, and sometimes the Democrats will be in control, sometimes the Republicans will be in control. And so whoever is in control, that minority person should be recognized as the leader of that minority. And that's how I feel. And I just think it's fair, because it's fair for a Democrat and it's fair for a Republican majority. And I think and I just got from all this conversation that basically the policy, people can just cut out the minority leader anytime that they want.
But, well, I mean, as it's written now, because it's not in the charter, the current de facto leadership committee could decide the door shut to the minority
Exactly.
leader, and then the decisions are made exactly the way they are without the president.
That's why it should be in the
But
charter.
we're not changing any of the powers
Right,
or anything related to that.
right, I understand, but it's just recognizing.
Minus the suggestion that we all decided is to eliminate the shall set agenda, because that would be
Right,
changing the powers
exactly,
fairly.
I agree.
That would change.
I agree, but that's what I'm saying, meaning that the minority leader.
So the town council shall consist of a mayor, deputy mayor, minority leader, and 8 council members. Done.
No, all we're saying at the end of this,
The leadership.
right, all we're saying,
You're saying council
right,
leader.
all we're saying here, I'll put in an amendment. I'm gonna make it as an emotion. I make a motion at the
There is
end
no
of.
motion, Lou. This isn't a.
Well, I want to do it this way. So this would clarify any misconception here. Just so we can move on to other things in the last 45 minutes. At the end of section 2, where it says chair. See, everybody see where it says purpose of serving civil process?
Yep.
Period. Next sentence should be, the council leadership shall consist of the mayor, deputy mayor, and minority leader. Period. That's it. That's it. That's the only statement we need to make. If certain councils want to muck around with that when they're councils and procedures, policies and procedures, that's fine, but we've codified it, it's done, doesn't interfere with the town manager, bingo.
And it's not under general powers and
It's
duties.
not under
of
general
power.
powers or anything of that nature.
Exactly.
Simple as that, done.
I said that a half hour ago.
Okay.
I know you did.
So I made a motion, is there a second?
Yes.
Yes.
Go ahead, Mr. Chair, go ahead.
All right, forget the motion because that's not where we're at. Do we have consensus?
We do.
Go ahead, Phil.
But I have a question, I don't know anything about the policies and procedures, but is it defined there as how an agenda gets set?
No.
Because I have a little problem that the town manager can be the only one that sets an agenda.
You know what?
To me, the town
He's
manager
the
works for the
CEO.
But you know
Yeah.
what? I don't, I don't think that's a conversation for this table. What you just talked about is not a conversation for this table, right? How they're gonna determine, no, it's not. How the agenda is set is not part of the charter. And we're here to talk about the charter. So all we're saying is we're gonna capsulize a phrase that's been in place for 30 years, counselor leadership. We're just gonna say, this is what counselor leadership is, period. And then the other concerns you have are legitimate, but it's not for this conversation.
Well, I agree that the council, I support the idea that the town manager should have the right to set an agenda personally, because I think that's how our government form. But I would disagree that it is potentially under the purview of us, because it goes under general powers and duties of the council.
Oh, later in the charter.
Yes.
Yeah, I get
You
that.
said-
Yeah.
You said
It's
in
not,
general,
yeah, I should have said not in this section of the charter.
yes.
Yeah.
Not in this.
All right, do we have consensus on that? Leadership is mayor, deputy mayor, minority leader, period.
Period.
Yes.
Mike?
I'm abstaining.
Okay. Let's move on. Yeah, let's move on.
I made the note.
Okay, so, next is the town clerk. Oh boy, is this a big one. At the meeting of the council on the second Monday, replace with at the organizational meeting of the council on the second Monday.
I think that is what it is. It's the organizational meeting. So we have a couple of just little housekeeping issues.
Is that what you
Clean up.
want, Sheila?
Yes.
Is everybody in agreement?
Yes.
Moving on. Procedure, at the first council meeting, or at the first meeting of the council, replace with at the organizational meeting of the council.
Yes.
Yes, yep.
Everybody?
Yes.
Boy, you're getting your way, Sheila.
And that one wasn't even mine. It's very controversial stuff.
That was someone else's.
Number 4, procedure shall not be less than once per month, and unless agreed upon by a majority vote of the council. I assume that's meetings, scheduled meetings?
Yes, and that is just to cover the fact that the charter says that we shall, and in the summertime, we know we don't always, so.
Understood. So that gives the council the proper right to take a month in the summer. Everybody good? Mike, you're good with that?
Yeah, and I think this section sort of talks about some of the other things we were talking about in the other discussion. The charter forces us to have our policies and procedures.
I have a quick question on
So
that.
this is so,
Go ahead, Zach.
So is it stated elsewhere in the charter about a minimum number of meetings that they'll need to have within the council term? Because my only question is, what if the council were to decide that they weren't going to meet at all, for whatever, for 2 years?
It says we meet 2 meetings a month.
But now it's unless agreed by the majority vote of the council. So would the council have the power to decide they're not going to meet at all and cancel all of their meetings?
Yeah.
Yeah,
If there's no reason to meet,
that's a good point.
I mean, you won't be elected long.
Well, I personally take issue with empowering the council to have that authority to cancel all of their meetings.
Well, then you vote them out. Yes.
That's
We've had that discussion a million
I
times.
missed that.
Like,
Yeah.
sorry.
You really reread it, yep.
To me, that's a little concerning. Well, like, what if the legislature decided tomorrow
We're
they're
doing it now,
disbanding
Zach.
for 2 years?
What, Lou, do you know of a time the town went a year without a meeting?
No.
No, okay.
Just because it hasn't been
current
passed doesn't
power,
mean that it can be.
Oh, my God.
But like, why, but I don't like to assume the worst intentions when we're writing things in here, right? Like, that's like not a way, like if anyone, I mean, from teaching classes, whenever you teach to like the worst behaved student in the class, things go poorly. Like, people don't feel respected.
It's true, but all school
So-
districts don't have the legal authority to decide they're not gonna have school for a year if they wanted to. There's still restraints on how much school they have.
All right, we have consensus on this. We're moving
I
on.
want to be recorded as a no in the minutes, please.
Okay, I got you.
All right. General powers and duties. The legislative power of the town shall be vested, granted.
It's just a grant.
I guess has to be removed, should be removed?
Sheila?
I think the word have should be gone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Should be vested.
Agreement?
Yeah.
I like the town clerk section. Next is general powers and duties. Said council may fix the charges, if any, to be made for services rendered by the town. Add, except where stipulated by state statute. Questions? None? Everybody's good?
Yeah.
Public hearings on and publication of ordinances, and in a newspaper having circulation in said town. Remove, CCM is working to remove the newspaper notices requirement from statute and simply require posting on the town's website, leave as required by law, so changes can be adopted when the new law changes. I agree with that. Because newspapers are obsolete, and this will save us from
CCM.
Connecticut Conference of Municipalities.
I don't know if this is too vague, but just understanding the way technology and communication is moving, like a website might be obsolete in 10 years.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if we just want to say like, post in an accessible public place or something like that.
Well,
Just-
that's why it says by, as required by law.
Yeah, and so
Whatever
like,
they say we have to do, we do.
so I just want to like, accessible
Everybody-
public place at law and like,
Ev-
I don't want to be specific.
Bob?
No, I'm good with, as required by law. You know, I mean, I think that would eliminate.
Right, and right now, required by law is it has to be in print, which is a waste of money. So,
Yeah.
Mike?
So if it says, just to be clear, if it says by law now, we have to put it in the newspaper. But
Yeah.
By law right now, we have to post it on my board, which
Yeah.
the law still calls the
Yeah.
town sign board.
Yeah.
So that's old school. You have to put it in the newspaper, and then election stuff are now required to be posted on the website
Got it. Okay. So we just, that's what we're saying by law.
by law.
Got it.
Yep.
Yep.
Everybody good?
It's a moving target too,
Yeah,
Mike.
no, fair, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that's good.
Spectacular.
Public hearings on and publications of ordinances. Within 10 days after final passage, all ordinances shall be published once in their entirety and in a newspaper. Remove, replace within 10 days after its passage. Each ordinance shall be published in summary according to state statute. Each summary shall include a disclaimer that the description is for informational purposes, and a full copy of the ordinance may be obtained without charge from the town clerk. Ordinances making or requiring an appropriation of funds must be published in full. Again, is that illegal? Just,
I stole this from a previous town that I worked at because, so if the council were to adopt, say, the new blight ordinance, the way our charter is written now, I have to publish the entire blight ordinance. It's like 7 or 8 pages long. It's going to cost the town a fortune to publish it in the newspaper. So what we did in a previous town is I would say the town council on January whatever adopted the amendments to the blight ordinance, and then I'd put the caveat in there, a full copy of the ordinance may be obtained free of charge from the town clerk, so that anyone could get it, but what I have to put in the paper isn't gonna cost a fortune.
or downloaded at.
Yeah, right, and I post, when we
I
when we
appreciate your
pass
language. I
ordinances.
mean, your language is fine. I mean, free of charge, right? I think that's the key.
Free of charge.
Right, I mean, I think that is something that has to be in the charter. So
Even having the downloadable link, most
Right.
people are just gonna hit download and they're not coming in.
Right.
Which is,
I agree, this language actually makes sense to
Super
me.
reasonable.
Yeah.
everybody in agreement?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Sheila.
Excuse me.
And you borrowed it from your previous
I
employer.
did.
Power of initiative, appropriating money, authorizing the levy of taxes or fixing the tax rate. One suggestion to clarify section, remove would allow residents to the opportunity to force a vote on the budget based upon D, E, and F. So this section is to vote on the budget. I have been thinking about this. Enfield is a very large town with a very large budget, and most people have no idea what's in it. And they're voting with their heart or their wallet, and they're not looking at the total needs of the town. The town council members have been elected to make the long meetings and the discussion and the decisions that the people ask them to do. I'm not in favor of all budgets going to referendum, but I am in full support of supporting a referendum if the town council puts a budget forward with a 4% or more increase on the residents of town. I believe any resident in this town that's about to get impacted with a 4% or larger tax increase should have a say. Anything under 4%, I believe the council should have the authority, as they currently do right now, to pass that budget. Thoughts?
Is that what this is suggesting?
This is all part of that, yes.
So that 4% is in DE and F?
Zach,
So to your
I think-
point, so
I'm sorry,
No,
Sheila.
that's okay.
Exactly.
can you relay me the quick scenario? So the budget comes, it's over 4%, what happens next?
If the town council goes to vote, not the town managers, because we're the ones who set the number, that I believe if this council, say this council, says we're gonna pass a 5.9% tax increase, it has to go to referendum. Under 4, it doesn't. People are living day to day, week to week right now, and a retired couple or even a younger couple who's struggling to maintain their home, a $500, $600 increase is a big difference. And I think people should have the right. Under 4%, with the council members knowing what the town needs, and it shouldn't be a problem, because if the town knows what it needs and it needs more than 4%, we don't have a problem with it going to referendum. Just tell the people, this is what it needs. You know, the Board of Education, you know, their budget, same thing. But we're talking about the overall budget right now, over 4% must go to referendum by the people.
Okay, so that would be an alteration to what is proposed here, because this under power of initiative means that, let's say the council passed a budget, 7% of residents would need to petition for it to get it on the ballot. Personally, if we're gonna have any conversation about it, I would be more in favor of entertaining that, because the expense of going to referendum is extensive. And to your point, the amount of people who are engaged in the budget process in the town whom are not elected officials is minimal. And I think we do more than enough to publicize it, and 4 people come, and potentially more people if there's one section of the budget that they have concerns about. So I don't necessitate that in every instance that the council raises over 4%, we need to send it to the voters. I think if it was a significant enough impact to them, that they should be able to get this 7% under an initiative. That's a pretty high amount.
And that's.
And I'm not gonna pretend that it isn't.
And most people don't even know what that means. This was a compromise that I had, and me and Mike had discussions about this. Mike wants all budgets to go to referendum, okay?
I thought Mike wanted the 7%, this power of initiative.
Currently
Right, so-
is 7%.
Right, so I compromise by putting the language in to give, I agree. A budget referendum of the year doesn't make sense in a town this size. However, again, I was willing to compromise in a percentage, but I think as a taxpayer, never mind being, I can't afford a 3%, 4 or 5% increase. I'm gonna go out and try to get signatures. That's why I left the budget, for my opinion, to keep it, instead of taking I know folks were fearful that every year we're gonna have a referendum and it's gonna last like some towns. And I appreciate that argument. That's why I came back and said, look, I'm saying it's the opportunity, but the taxpayer has to do a little work. If you're that upset, you should be able to, you should go out and do, I didn't change any of the other part of the charter other than just saying that the electors could, force a petition or vote. And if you read this, the council still can reject it. So they can still put a petition forward and the council can say no, which again, you can argue that defeats the purpose, but I didn't want to change the charter. I just wanted to give the residents who are willing, who are upset, to go out and do a little legwork, get a petition, get signatures, get it verified by the clerk, bring it to the council, and then force a referendum. So there's some legwork that needs to be done. I'm fine with a certain percentage. Again, I agree at one point I was fine every year. I've compromised. I don't think it makes sense either to have a referendum every year. Because again, most people aren't engaged in the budget and it would cost us a lot of money. So I'm trying to compromise, but I do think that if there's a budget, I feel as a taxpayer that I should be able to force. I'm not getting into recall votes or any of that sort of thing, but that's why I like the 2-year term, because again, it kind of takes care of itself. And I'm willing to be flexible here, but I think there should be some opportunity for the voter if they are really upset about what they, because again, the council's hamstrung an amount we can spend on a major project each year. So then why, as an overall budget, that the voters shouldn't have some recourse? And I'm flexible with percentages. I just try to keep it simple and not make it, because I know you can have every scenario. Well, what if this happens? What if that happens? This is simply giving the voter who is upset, has to go do, so like they'd have to do in any petition, they'd have to go out and get signatures. And so there's some work, I mean, and again, a constitutional republic and a democracy, you do have to do a little work if you're upset. You shouldn't just have to sit on your couch and say, I'm upset about that and I want to go to referendum. No, there's some work that needs to be done. That was my thought.
And that was why I talked to you about the 4%.
Yeah, which I'm fine with,
Because if a council wants to put a larger tax increase to the voters, the council should have to justify why they're
That's
doing
fair.
it,
Again,
not
I'm
the
compromising
voter.
this. That's why I'm
And that's why I made that cutoff.
Yeah.
Anything bigger, Lou?
Well, first of all, to my two friends, I want to thank you for trying to mold a compromise here. I do want to commend you for that. Thank you very much. I just want to share some facts and figures with you on this. In our circles, in our party for many years, I was called the budget man. So I certainly know how the town budget's put together, having helped put many of them together and the vote and the timing of all this. And so it is, I don't want to say I'm an expert at it, but it is my level of expertise. I did a survey of towns that are in our ERG group. I think some of you know what the ERG group is, our Economic Resource Group. And there are 6 towns that basically are in our ERG group that within that 40,000 to 48,000 populace, all right? 2 of them are a little bit more urban than we are, I will admit, but I want to share some information with you. Middletown, 47,800 people. Wallingford, 44,400 people. Southington, 43,500 people. Enfield ourselves, Shelton, which I was really surprised at, about 41,000, and Norwich, which is about 40,000. Again, I agree with you, Middletown and Norwich are a little bit more urban than we are, but they're in our ERG group. 3 of them have a council manager form of government like us. The other 3 have a mayor council form of government, so pretty darn close. Not one of them vote on the budget. It's done by the council manager or council mayor. I want to remind everyone, whether we like it or not, we're not Summers or Suffield or East Windsor. We're a representative form of government, not a participation one. We defeated that back in 1966 when we went from first selectman government to a council manager form of government. We are a representative form of government where the councilors are on there to make these decisions. And when the people don't like it, like last time, Mike, what happened to our majority? We got voted out, right? So the people have a way of participating, that is through the ballot box every 2 years. Now you talk about the referendum, be either the 4% that Mike, that Ken brought up, or the power of initiative that you're talking about. The timing, well, the first thing you would have to do as a former registrar, and I'm looking at the town clerk for a little bit of support on some of these dates from Ron, is you're really gonna have to move the date up when you wanna do the budget. You can't be doing it on May 20th. I'm saying May 20th, whenever that. You can't. If you're gonna have any type of election, you're gonna have to move it up and get it done sooner. Because if you do the power of initiative, you're gonna have to give them at least 2 weeks to get their signatures, I think by state statute. You give the registrars another week to verify all those names. So at a minimum, you couldn't have the election until 3 or 4 weeks, and it's a full-blown election now in the state of Connecticut. Absentees, early voting, memory cards, and do you have one central place, or is the registrar going to have to open up every polling place? So for this type of participation on a budget where people are getting elected for, is going to be very expensive and time-consuming. You start voting on this budget, you probably are not going to make the July 1st deadline. No one in this town and knowing the voters the way I do, you're not going to make it. And you're going to end up defaulting to the state requirement, which I believe is whatever the town manager proposes. I know there's some state statute for that too. So again, I'm totally against this. We have a representative form of government, the town council, that's what you've been elected for. That's why I sat all those years and my family years before that. That's your job. You take the heat. You make the tough decisions. You don't go out to the people. The people don't like what you did, gosh darn it, they'll vote you out, shove your butt right out the door.
Can I ask a clarifying question? Are you saying you're against both ideas?
Yes.
So you want to eliminate what's currently in the charter?
No.
That's what I'm asking.
No.
All right.
No,
What's in the charter is somebody's going to have to take initiative and get 7%.
No. Right now, you cannot vote on the budget at all.
You can vote on other things.
Other things.
But not the budget.
So I understand you, but not on a budget, because you can't fund money. I understand where Ken, I'm not done, please. I understand where Ken and Mike are coming from. You know, if I was part of their caucus in their group, I probably would want this too, but I'm not. This would be a severe setback for a town of Enfield with 42,500 people that has a second or third largest landmass for a town in the state of Connecticut. And I've already mentioned nobody in our group does this. Nobody. They have referendum votes for projects. Everybody has that. And they have public hearings, gosh darn it. No doubt about that. It can't be taken out of it. Those are really good things. They really add value to our form of government. But voting on the budget, again, we're not Summers, we're not Suffield, we don't have a first selected form of government, we're not East Windsor, we're town of Enfield, we're whether you like it or not, we were heading towards being a small city. We've kind of taken a step back on the population for now because not enough turnover in homes yet. But we'll be going back up that scale again. There's no doubt about it. You can't be fooling around with the budget like this. That's all I have to say.
Okay, you're done?
I'm done.
Okay,
Thank you.
can we eliminate the little comments, like if I was in your caucus, I would want it too? And let's stick to the facts on the table. Everybody has a right to put their
Sure,
opinions
you
forward.
can eliminate that out if you want.
All right. Anyone else?
Can I ask? Oh, I'm sorry.
No,
No, go ahead, Bob.
No.
You had your hand up.
No, first of all, Mike and Ken, your comments, I'm listening to you. I definitely understand where you're coming from. You know, once again, I myself have never been in favor of a town budget going to referendum. I have never been in that position to even think of that, all right? I'll be the prime example of that. Okay, we had a big tax increase. We did not get elected, all right? So voters hear you loud and clear. I am very concerned, and we are concerned about budget, the way that we've been spending money. When I look at timeframes on how things need to get done and processed in regard to have a town budget, or to have somebody go through and do the 7%, get a petition, and have a certain percentage, I don't think that the time frame is gonna be there. I just think that we're gonna run into a lot of difficulties in trying to even get that accomplished, if you're thinking about even doing that. To force a referendum on the budget, it gets defeated. It gets defeated, it gets defeated. That's taxpayers' monies every time that you're gonna have that vote going out there. It's gonna cost a heck of a lot of money for our taxpayers to approve a budget that technically could fail and then have to revert back to the town manager's budget, which in the long run would probably screw the taxpayers one way or another. And so I'm a dead set no against the town budget referendum, but I do appreciate, but I just think that in the long run, it would cost us too much money to get this accomplished.
So I like what the part, if it fails at referendum, it goes to the maximum amount, which I'm saying 4%, or that number could be negotiable. Now, both of you are correct. You passed a 16% tax increase, and you got voted out.
Well,
But you know what? The residents still are paying that.
But you were glad that because it helped you with last year's budget. All right, so.
The residents are still paying
But what I'm
that
saying,
16%.
we got hit also with that tax increase, with people's property values going up as much as 35, possibly even 40%. So was that really a true, did we really truly, hurt the taxpayers with this tax increase? We had no control over how much people's property values went up, and that was like automatic tax increases.
Right, plus 16%.
No, I don't
So,
think-
and the residents had no say, and every year from now forward, that money is still being taken from them. It's not like they can vote you out and the taxes go back down. And that's where I'm saying, you could have a council come in, this year let's use, it was 22% just to give the Board of Education everything they asked for this year. Just the board, 22%, nothing on the town side. So what would the tax increase have been this year? And you're saying, oh, well, we get voted out next year. That's a quarter of your bill going up. And the average bill in Enfield right now is $6,000. So that costs a homeowner $100+ a month. And, oh, well, vote us out. But the money is still being taken. It's not like it's a one-time expense. And the voters should have a say. They have a say on referendum when we go over that 1% of our budget. They have a say so we don't spend out of control. So why can't we have something that says we can't tax out of control? It blows. 4% I think is gracious. You want to say 5? I'm willing to work with you, but not 16, not 22. That's not right. I don't care how big the town is. So that's where I stand on this one. And me and Mike came up with a compromise because people shouldn't have to do all that legwork if they're about to face a 20% tax increase. It should be automatic in the charter, because you know what? Then the council's gonna think twice about forcing this down the taxpayers' throats. Zach.
Thank you. So my concern with, when you're setting a number is each 11 counselors go through that budget, and you understand that whether it's 4% or 5%, it could mean not a single service was added, not a single that money was being pissed away. The Board of Education's budget, 5% is what they're asking. 3.5% is contractual obligations. But you could put that number on Facebook and you'll have plenty of opinions thinking that 3% is, oh, they're wasting this, they're spending 3%, because they don't understand that that 3% is contractual. We have to pay for that. So I don't know why the council, 11 people who I believe can make an informed decision about the budget, is going to send it out and let people look at, let's be honest, when you have a bunch of people looking at the budgets out in the residents, they're going to look at one thing. Well, what's the total number? Oh, it's 3%. It doesn't matter what's in that 3%. That 3% may be keeping everything the way it is, but they say it's 3%. That's too much. The council should retain that authority. And in respects to the 16% tax increase, which I do think was too much, the council that succeeded could have, with the exception of the Board of Ed, could have cut the budget further.
What do you mean with the exception of the Board of Ed?
Because you can't cut the Board of Ed by state statute.
Correct.
But you could have cut the town significantly if you wanted to. I'm not saying that you should.
We did.
And you did, but you got it at 0%. You could have cut further and lowered the mill rate if you wanted to. You chose not to do that. And I'm not saying that you should, but don't make the argument that you don't have the power to do that, because you do have the power. You didn't exercise it, just as they had the power to keep the taxes within reason, and they chose not to exercise that power. So the council still, the people that are informed to make the decisions, you made an informed decision about why you wanted to keep it at 0%. They made their decision about why they wanted to raise 16%, but all of you looked through every single page of that budget, spent hours on that meeting. The residents, the vast majority, don't look at things that way. You and I both know you've been standing out for elections years. People walk up to say, what's this on the ballot? I have no idea what this is. Why are we gonna put the future of this town, such significant amount of money, in the hands of so many people who probably don't know what they're voting on? I just think that's irresponsible.
They know they're voting on whether they can pay their electric bill or not
And
next year.
And it's,
Because a $200 or $150 a month increase
Can't do it.
is a lot.
it is a lot. And it is my hope that people can put some faith in their elected officials, that they'll be honest and true when you knock on their door and they say, what am I gonna vote for? What is your budget gonna look like? And they can give a good answer. And if they're liars, then they should be voted out. I don't think that means that we need to change our form of government because councilors lie to voters.
Tom?
You know, I'm trying to make sure that I digest information that's factual. And, you know, I'm gonna push back on one comment that was made, that the large increase that went in a couple of years ago, the 16%, Democrats got voted out, but people still had to pay the tax. I think I'm on the same page that the current council could have rescinded that tax increase. So I don't think it's fair to say that once you do something bad, it lives forever. And I think that's the point you were making, and I think that's wrong.
Did you watch the current budget this year, Tom?
I did.
Did you see the $7 million we had to pay for a previous issue?
I
So
did. But
did you see the cuts we even made to the town side?
I did.
So can you sit here and wholeheartedly say we could have reduced after, not only did they do everything, they charged everything,
Right.
they went over by $7 million.
I know.
So it wasn't 16%, it was a lot more than that.
I'm right with you.
Okay, so to sit here and say we could have cut more when you know they grossly overspent in 2 years, there was no way. And I don't want to use the word butchered, but we butchered the town. We still gave the Board of Ed a 2% increase and bailed them out $7 million and took over full security because they cut it at $1.2 million.
Point of order, Mr. Chair. Hold on. Point of order.
He has the floor.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman. Enough, and I made it myself. That's enough political statements here. And let's get on to whether we want to vote on a budget or not. Because quite frankly, I'm about ready to vomit.
All right, point of order denied.
You were not. You were.
Point
Point of
of
order denied.
What do you mean, point
No,
denied?
I said, that's right.
He wasn't, he came at me over a comment about the budget.
I'm just talking, I'm not talking about you, Tom.
He admits he made the comment, Lou.
Yeah, but then you go on and on and
You're
on.
so one-sided.
You go on and on and on.
And I'm the chair, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Good night.
Have a good night.
You too.
Well,
All right, back to,
yeah,
Good luck.
Go ahead.
Just a little bit of a continuance on.
Now you, Tom, what's you?
Okay,
have a good night, Lou.
yeah, I don't know what just happened, and for some reason, it's not bothering me. So I'm just gonna move on.
It's politics.
Yeah, all right, but my point that I'm trying to make is that I have faith in the council that when they approve a budget and whatever severe steps they take, and I think we've had recent examples in the last couple budget cycles where one severe decision was made to put a huge increase in place. And that council approved it. That council was not reelected. The next council came in and had to deal with a disaster. And did, in my opinion, because I almost feel like I was part of the process, to the best they could in an unwinnable situation. So that's the point I was trying to make. But I felt like I was hearing, if you make a decision to put a budget increase in place, or let's even talk about the other side, a council decides to reduce the mill rate, and then all of a sudden, things start to fall apart because of that mill increase, decrease. The next council can try to fix that. That's the only point I was trying to make, and I wasn't hearing that.
The mill rate,
Yeah.
and I want to just clarify, it would be hard to play with the mill rate because the mill rate does drastically fluctuate, like Lou was saying, because of real estate values and revaluation. Every 10 years,
Yeah.
everybody looks and says, oh my God, our mill rate dropped huge. But the taxes
Yeah.
didn't, because it's just I don't get why they do it, but they do. So we got to kind of stick to the percent, because if it's a revaluation year,
I'm with you.
that would prevent that.
So where I wanted to get to was I wanted to give a perspective of my opinion on this 4% concept. And in my mind, there is a point where the budget number becomes too big and the budget process becomes too complex in an organization like a town. A smaller town can have the ability to evaluate a number and the process that backs up that number. At some point, it just becomes too big. I don't think you could ask a state to put a budget out and have the voters of the state approve that budget. I don't think that would work. The country couldn't do it because it's just too enormous. So in my mind, it boils down to, where's Enfield fall on that spectrum? And I come out on the side of, I think we've grown to be too big. And I trust more in the council than I do in the population on this issue. And so that's where my vote is. I vote no referendum. That's where it's at. That's where I'm at.
Mike?
Well, again, Ken and I had, I think, a fair compromise, and it's not to do it every year. And it's another, and it's funny, we forget about the basic form of government. It's just another check and balance to where, again, as a voter, I want to have as many, in my opinion, as many rights as I can have them. And I don't want the government to tell me what they think I should be able to do and what I shouldn't be able to do. And I don't want any elected official, I don't care how smart they are, telling me I'm not smart enough to vote on a budget. Maybe I'm not, but I'll learn. That's what you're supposed to do as a free citizen. You're supposed to learn. And I mean, that's the way I look at it. So whether there's for me, this is the simplest, in my opinion, how, again, I want to have that authority and I'm going to learn. And so I can't force the next voter to do what I do. But I also don't want to have my power taken away because Anne Marie doesn't want to learn on the budget.
Can I ask
And I think that's where we're in right now in the country, and I'll just, let me finish.
Yeah.
Is that the reason why we don't have a taxing problem, we have a spending problem. We're taxed more than ever in our history across every level of government. But as we get to next April, all we're gonna hear is you gotta spend more money.
Can I ask one follow-up question?
Yep, right ahead.
Which is, my concept of, at some point, things become too big to allow.
I hear you.
Do you agree with that?
I understand the law of large numbers and I get where you're going. I don't think we're there in this town.
No, I'm not,
Fair.
I'm trying to start with,
Yeah.
do you agree with the concept that at some point it becomes too big to
Correct.
be wieldy?
Yeah.
You agree with that?
I think our government
Okay,
is.
so you're saying what I'm saying, Tom.
Right,
At some point,
right.
a tax increase becomes too big.
No, that
Okay.
wasn't what I was saying.
I know, but you
Well,
are.
I mean,
No,
also.
no, what I was saying was, at some point, the entity, in this case, it's a town, at some point, the entity becomes too big to allow the budget to be voted on by all the members.
So.
That's what I'm asking
so
you, whether you
reason
agree or
is
disagree.
If the entity becomes too big.
Right.
Then the voter loses control of the spend of that because it's too big.
Yes.
And now you have to accept whatever the budget is.
Yes.
I hate to say it, that's what California is because they've lost control of their budget.
You know what your control is?
Yeah, my control.
Your control is you vote for the people that are representing you. That's our government.
But again, I also want to have that power as a taxpayer to say, I can't afford it. I like where I live. I don't want to have to go live somewhere else because I can't afford to live here.
So you don't think your power is to make your case to your representative?
No, my power is to make good, that's why I like the petitions. I have to go out and knock on your door and say, look, will you sign my petition? I'm willing to compromise with Ken, because again, I think it's not something we do every year. But again, it's giving the power and opportunity if something happens, that, again, the voter, the person, the taxpayer has a right to say, no, I'm not gonna accept that. I'm not gonna wait another year. I wanna do it this year. Why should they have to wait? And that's just, and again, I'll stop, done, I'm fine with your compromise.
Go ahead, Mike.
No, I'm fine with your compromise.
So
Yeah.
the 4% was just a number that we floated
Right.
around. I mean, is it 5, is it 6%? And what happens if they vote no? Does it revert back to that cap? And that's it? But what it does is it takes away the council's ability to say, we know we're gonna get voted out, but who cares? 25%. And we're stuck paying it. And there's nothing you can do about it. At least now the voter has one last ditch effort to reel in the spending and not only stop the tax increase and vote them out. So, I mean, to vote somebody out and still have to pay the bill, that kind of defeats the whole purpose. And that's where I'm going. So it may not be 4%, Tom. And if you're comfortable, and I'm not saying you are, but if you say, you know what, Ken, I'd be more comfortable at 8%. I'm on. It just at some point, the voter has got to say, stop.
You know what?
And if they don't,
And that's the only, I agree, that's the only
You
point.
were able to, somehow, you were able to read what brain waves I was sending out, which is, I do want to represent myself as willing to compromise. And I would say that, as you were saying the words, the thing that was really driving me was the 4%. And I hear you, that you're saying, I don't want to put words into your mouth. What I'm hearing is, I want to give the voters one last chance when there's something extraordinary.
That's all it's-
And maybe the extraordinary is a number like 8%. And I could find myself saying yes to that.
You all set, Tom?
Ma'am.
Zach?
So I have a clarifying question. So I just want to, because I hear two ideas. Is it what you're suggesting is that you are adding an addendum to Mike's proposal?
No.
So, okay, because
Yeah, can we clarify what it is?
because I was a little more interested, I'm not saying that I'm a yes on your idea, but I was a little more entertaining the idea that if what Mike was saying, Mike says the voters, the voters should have a level of recourse. They go out, they get 7% of signatures, which is a lot of work.
They go, right.
Yes.
I agree. So me and Mike, and I don't mean to cut you off, but just to clarify, me and Mike had a long discussion about this. And I said, Mike, that's not fair to the voters, even though I agree with what he's trying to do. We're the ones who are trying to put through a 10% tax increase. The voters should have a say. Now, if we know that 10% tax increase is to fund brand new schools, well, the council sells it, it passes, things are good, no problem. But if it's for what? And everybody's like, what is this tax increase for? The voters should know. Now, if the number is, and the only reason I brought up 4 is because was just the number I used. I mean, everything is evolving right now, or it's dying. So, the compromise or not is what is the cap to automatic referendum. And you are right, Zach. I do believe it's not fair to make the voters do all that legwork when we're the ones in the position. So this will make us sharpen our pencil even that much more. And we're not done. So there is still more to be done, and it's just a different way. And
So the way I look at it is, and maybe no one will, just to throw an idea out there, I am somewhat okay with if something's to a level of extreme. But I would do it in addendum with Mike's proposal. I still think that rather than sending it to, because anything that, we could have a really challenging time. And I don't, the decisions that you made as the mayor and as a council I hope you know that I'm not begrudging those. I'm just saying that those decisions you made, and I think you had an authority to raise taxes, you had the authority to keep them the way they were, and I think if you wanted to dig deeper, you had the authority to lower them. That's the argument I'm making, and I think the council made informed decisions either way, whether I agree with them on principle or not. But for me to feel in any way comfortable with sending out such a significant budget to the voters I think when people put their name on a piece of paper, I think people are a little more cognizant of the decisions they're making than just saying, oh, there's an election, it's 4%, it's this. I think people are a little more informed. I don't know, maybe some people today just sign their name on anything. I personally do not. I like to know what I'm signing. And so I would feel a little more comfortable if you were at the 7% potentially of registered voters eligible, that they could petition it for the budget if it was in a certain increase. So it's taking your idea, if it was to be 5% or 6%, whatever that number is, if the budget was in excess of that they have the power of initiative under the same procedures listed here.
Understood.
That would just an idea.
Understood, but again, the council that is voting for that large tax increase has the ability to say no. So it means nothing. That whole language means nothing, because if they're trying to get through a 20% tax increase, Mike and Tom do all this legwork. And I dig in and say, no, I'm still raising your taxes 20%. That was a total waste of time and it's misleading.
That's very fair. So to that point,
Can I clarify this section though? This is the way, and I'm not a lawyer, I'm gonna say that right out front, but the way I read this power of initiative and having worked with petitions prior to, so if the electors wanted to promote something that maybe the council had voted down, or wanted to repeal a vote, that they can get the petitions, submit it to the council after their names are checked. Then the council has 30 days, let me see.
30 days.
Yeah, so if the council fails to adopt such an ordinance, meaning the council failed to repeal that budget vote that was too high, then they have 30 days to do the petition, and then it goes to referendum within 90 days, and it says that the voters, the electors may have to adopt or reject the same at any election within 90 days after such proposed ordinance. So that's how I'm reading this, and that is what I'm familiar. It doesn't go back to council and council go, oh no. It can go back to council, and that council has a certain amount of time to say, okay, voters, I agree with you, or okay, voters, no, we're not gonna do anything.
After the fact.
Yes, and then it goes to referendum where the voters can vote.
So.
And then 20% have to at least show up at least 20% in order for the vote to go yay or nay.
So their yay or nay is, so let's say
So I hope
Tax
I didn't
increase.
overstep there.
No.
I'm just trying to clarify the process.
tax increase comes in, voters are pissed. They go out and they get their 7%, or it's at, and it reaches whatever level. It comes to the council, and the council has a decision to either accept, in which they would rescind their original budget, or they can vote no, and if they vote no, it goes to the voters. So they could either honor,
That's why I left it that way.
so they could either honor it,
Right,
or they could send it to referendum.
right.
So Sheila
And you can
corrected.
certainly
Potentially
get
saving-
an attorney's opinion on this, but that is what I.
Right, that's
mean.
why Ken and I were trying to compromise, trying to find, we're not trying to jam anything down
And
anyone's
so
throat.
this would also potentially mean that if, and I'm not gonna speak for whatever councils could do, that we may not have a referendum at all, but the voters gathered it and they say, you know what?
Right.
This is a lot of people, and they'll reconsider their decision. So it's not even forcing a referendum.
Right, that's what I'm saying, I'm not.
If
I
the
think-
council chooses to reject that petition.
Right, I think Ken and I understand, we're not trying to force a referendum every year, that, I've come off that, I agree, I'm trying to compromise. So
That
we're
would
trying
be
to-
the public hearing, Zach, I think is what you're, when the council initially says what the budget is, the public hearing is before we vote,
Yes,
so.
but the point is, if they gathered
Into
signatures,
But then they can come back.
they've already
Yeah.
had their signatures to
Yeah.
force a referendum if the council says, we don't wanna honor it.
Right.
Yeah, go ahead, Laura.
Yeah, so I just want to say, generally speaking, I agree with treating the budget like any other resolution. That you can go, you can petition, comes back, there's a discussion, and there's a referendum. Like, I just think that's reasonable. I also, like, I agree with folks where I just don't think there should be an automatic trigger. I also will say, to the point of like largeness, I know it's not the same, but I've been through petitioning in 2 whole states where the threshold was bigger than 7%, and like, it cost people a lot of money, but like, it happened. So I just want to, it's certainly possible to gather a lot of signatures, and I do think it's fair. Like, And the reason that I also really enjoy, well, enjoy is a strong word maybe, being able to pull back a budget or pull back a resolution is, again, like, there's a lot, rather than a person, which you can't do in Connecticut, as I understand from the municipal code, is, like, if we elect Zach to town council and he enjoys a very large budget increase, but, you know, I like his values, he's my friend, I don't want him off council, but I want that budget gone. Like, I think that's nice that we can level with each other in that way. I just think we should treat the budget like everything else.
Point of order for 1 second. I need a motion to go to 8:45.
Yes.
Second, all in favor?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Continue, Laura. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, I actually was totally done.
I just wanted to keep it a legal meeting.
No,
so
it's okay.
I know Bob people have questions, so go ahead.
My only question here, and thank you for the clarification,
Yeah.
because with everything that's been thrown out, I was getting a little confused as to what was going on. I think Sheila clarified it.
Absolutely.
As to the process. Yeah, but I also would like to get, and you had mentioned this also, to get an attorney's opinion in regard to what we've been discussing here.
To line out the process in, not
Yes.
in legalese, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
sure.
Well,
If
hold on,
everyone
right.
agrees, Sorry.
If we agree
Right,
to go
yeah.
with Mike's approach, if we agree to do a 9 or 10% approach, we don't need that. And that takes the burden off of the taxpayer and shifts it to the council. And I really think a large tax increase should be on the burden of the town council, not the residents trying to fight for their homes.
I'll just say, look, I think it's been a great discussion. I don't know why folks got upset about this. This is we're talking about giving people a say on their taxes. I mean, let's unpeel the onion here. All we're doing is saying, should people have a say in what they pay? Yes, they should. Okay, I don't care what it is. You should have a say. And that's what I'm saying. That's why we have tried to find ideas. We're not trying to jam anyone. We're trying to this has been great, Jack. You've had great ideas. This has been a great discussion. I'm sorry to ask.
Yeah.
And so this is a positive thing. It really is. I don't understand why there's angst. And again, remember, we're trying to say, look, it's our town and I want to have a say in it. And I shouldn't have to run for council to do that.
Right.
That's all we're saying. Yeah.
Give the voice to the people on something
And I'm
that is.
flexible where we end up.
And the word you used was, what was the word? I mean, because this could be so life-changing when somebody gets $150 a month tax increase. And with the cost of homes now, the average house in Enfield is $300,000 to $350,000. That's absurd. This is Enfield. And the taxes are $6,000 on that house. And now we're saying, we can send whatever we want and tax you whatever we want. And if we as residents, all of us, don't finally say, remember the Boston Tea Party over tea?
3 cents.
What I'm saying
3
is,
cents.
right, what I'm saying, 3 cents,
Yeah.
is if it is larger than 8% or whatever that number is, you, the voter, should have to say, I think we need a school, and Tom votes yes. And Phil says, I'm against it. If I wanted the best of education, I'd move to Avon or Simsbury. But I can't afford to live there. That's why I live in Enfield. And it's the choice of the voter. And I've explained about being voted out. That's after the fact. Anne Marie.
Just a quick clarification. So I thought I heard you say, Ken, correct me if I'm wrong, but if there was a larger number, 8, 9%, I think is what you said, then that 7% of the signature, you're saying you wouldn't
Right.
include that.
Right.
So if it was a lower budget increase number for 5, no. What, did I miss that?
Me and Mike have different,
Right.
his is totally different than mine.
You are not with the 7%.
Mike has agreed that we can do something this way. What is the number? And Tom,
Give me what's the this way? Tell me the
this way is, there is a cap on the budget.
Correct.
So if the number is 8%,
Okay,
If me and Mike try to pass a budget this year for
Right.
9%, everybody in this room has a right to go to the poll and say yes or no.
So there's no way.
7.9%?
automatic
That's what I was
referendum.
confused about too.
Automatic referendum.
Automatic.
And then where does the 7% come into play?
That just stays non-budget. That just stays the power.
Non-budget.
Right, that's just non-budget. Stays,
That's
yeah.
non-budget
Right.
only. Okay,
Right.
okay,
But-
thank you, I needed that, because
That
I was
Was the
thinking
other
that was
proposal,
with
though,
budget.
to take out the
Yeah,
non-budget
my
part?
proposal was
Hold
to
on,
take,
yeah.
to take out.
Yeah, that's what,
I'm saying, I'm trying to, I'm willing to leave it the way it is.
that's what I was got.
Relieve the language, which means right now, currently, you cannot vote on it, but you can't force a referendum with petition.
Okay,
To have it by, again, Ken's suggestion, I'm willing to compromise, so
So two
leave
separate
language it
items.
is, but add a new paragraph that says, at whatever percentage you folks feel comfortable at, I'm flexible with it.
Would you be okay at 8%, Tom?
I am.
Phil?
I think that's too high. I hadn't thought about it till you talked about it, but I have thought about this issue.
Nikki?
If that, if I would,
Oh.
go ahead.
You haven't thought it, you thought it was too high. I'm trying to get
Yes.
consensus on a number.
no, but I look, the last 10 years, if you look at
Yeah, what's the average?
the average is 2.4, 2.5%.
That's too low.
Over time, right? So you figure any council's they have managed to those levels, whoever was on the councils. So,
You can't use the average,
I think,
because you gotta think about the 16.
My thoughts.
You're forgetting about the 16 when you talk about the average. The council approved the 16% increase.
well, that's not in these figures yet.
I know, and so you're saying, you're
No, I know, but even if I counted the 16,
Yeah.
would the average come up to 3%?
It doesn't, and that's what I'm saying, you can't look at the average. You have to recognize that in a given year, the council approved the 16%.
I know
increase.
that. But
So
if
that's
you
what
look
we're
at the
trying to.
history over time, and you say, well, 8%, well, there's gotta be some extraordinary things, and a number, a jump like that over
That's
the
right.
historical
At
average. right?
8%.
So then you gotta come into, how do you deal with that? What's causing it, right? The council's gonna go through it and all that, but the big thing I have is communication. You almost don't need a vote if it's communicated well. But I think the general public doesn't understand the budget, and there's,
Right.
and I can't honestly say that in the details of the budget, I understand. So, because it's just not spending. Look at what's gone on in this town the last couple of years, Mass Mutual, the mall. You know, a lot of what gets down at the bottom line is our revenue is not going this way. If anything, it's declining. So that comes into your spending equation. So but I'm thinking 4 or 5%, I could kick it out to a vote, unless it was clearly communicated.
Right, but if it's clearly communicated, it should pass at referendum.
Right.
So, Tom was at 8, you're at 4 or 5,
Yeah.
so let's call it 5.
8's a big number.
Okay. Nikki?
I'm confused what, okay, so in other words, the 7% is not gonna.
It's off the table.
Oh, it's off the
Right
table. We're
now,
talking
forget
about-
about it for right now.
Well, I'm for the referendum.
At what level?
At what number though?
I know, that's the tough part.
Well, we're trying to get consensus, because if we can't get consensus on a number, it don't work. I think 4% myself, having sat through 14 budget cycles, is too low.
I do too.
But it's
I'm comfortable with the 8%.
7, 8.
Yeah.
I mean, and I would go 6 maybe, but even that's getting tight. What about you, Laura?
I'm a hard no on any automatic trigger.
Okay, Bob,
I'm a no.
Zach?
I'm sorry, what did you say about?
I'm a no.
Oh, sorry.
Zach's a no. Anne Marie?
I'm okay with 8.
8. Mike?
Again, I'm trying to compromise, and Tom's suggestion's fine. I'm willing to go to 6 if that bridges Phil's number a little bit to get, but I think, roughly 8% is roughly a 4 mil increase for perspective, roughly. Again, depending on the current size of the budget, that's a pretty darn big increase. So I'm just saying 6 gets you probably a 3 mil-ish roughly, just think in terms of mills. Again, I know I'm just giving you ballpark numbers and
Good
so, I mean, really, I don't think there's ever been a 3 mil increase in this town. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe one. Then we just have, that was 3 mils, sorry, that was it, but that's a big increase. Usually it's a mill, 2 mills is,
Right.
and roughly a mill's about $3 million or so, roughly.
I know we've reached our quarter of, so do we need another motion for?
Yeah, another 15 minutes, I'll entertain a motion.
So, second.
All in favor? All right,
And
So
can I
I'm
ask,
willing to compromise on the final number.
so you're at 6 or
I'll
8?
say 6 or 8, I'm fine.
6 or 8.
Yeah.
Tom, will you come down to 6?
no, before I answer that question, what I was wondering, is it okay if I were to ask for a little bit more discussion on why the not at all?
Thank you. Yes, that's what I was.
Is that okay to ask
Because
that?
I have made clear that I'm not a hard no on this
Yeah.
issue. I personally would prefer, and I think if I heard Laura correctly, we're a little more comfortable with power of initiative for the budget than we are an automatic trigger. That if I would feel comfortable. And I have my significant reservations about this. But I am empathetic to the idea, especially knowing that we're on tough times. If 7% of voters, which is a large amount, are willing to put their ink on a piece of paper to say that this tax increase or whatever it may be is not sustainable, and it goes to the council, providing an option for the council not to even have to spend the money to go to referendum and say this is a lot and change their opinion, or have it rejected and then have it go to the voters. That is something I feel there's a lot of measures in place. Number one, for the decision to be made without having to go to referendum, because there's a petition process. And number two, for it to be high enough and I think involved enough for the people to put their names on the paper to make a very clear statement that it could be unaffordable for the residents. And they've put the work in to do it. And I think that's a significant change. We're empowering people to do it. I don't think it's not going to be as easy as I think your proposal is, but I think it's a compromise that I'm willing to entertain.
That's at any dollar amount, any increased amount?
Any dollar amount.
Thank you.
Laura?
Sorry, you can go ahead if you want.
No, you will.
So, like a couple of reasons. One, like, I just don't want to commit to spending money on a referendum if I don't have to. Two, I respect understanding, I don't know what happened here, but respecting like Lou's research. I know we've talked about a lot of other towns and like like the way the other towns that are about our size run it makes sense. The other thing is like, okay, even if the majority of folks here say like we're doing 6 or 8%, I still feel like every resident should have the opportunity to petition anything the council decides, honestly. Like, and I also think that based on some of my previous experience, 7% is a pretty darn low threshold, actually. That, granted, that's not in Connecticut, so like, grain of salt, of course, but like, I just think town council does something, residents don't like it, they put in the work, town council can reconsider. If they can't figure it out, go to referendum. It's also like I don't want to say it's a simple process, but it's the same process for everything. Also, like even if there's not a big budget increase, or if there's a big budget cut, I want people to be able to express their opinion on that too, if they get the signatures for it.
Mm-hmm.
I'll just give you my 2 cents. I'm not for referendums. I think they cost the town a heck of a lot of money, and I think if we do go to referendum, even with your suggestions, and I have no issues with what you guys have been proposing and everything, I just think that it's gonna cost the town a heck of a lot of money. And once again, I think what's in place here with the voter petitioning of 7%, if voters are not happy with any decisions that are being made, regardless of what the budget is. Now, and I'm very uncomfortable with numbers that are just being thrown out, There's no justification. Where did you come up with 4%? Where did you come up with 7%? Where did you come up with 8% or whatever? We're just throwing numbers out like where are we coming from? And so I think the process that's in there to force a referendum, for them to come in front of the council and say, we have the signatures, and listen to people. If somebody came and petitioned in prior years, we'd sit down and listen to them. there's, people have that right. So I just think that it would be putting a lot of extra things into this particular charter where it's pretty spelled out right here as to what the process could be done. I'm very uncomfortable with numbers that are being thrown out by everybody
So,
here.
As a clarifying
No,
question.
no,
Fair point.
hold on. Tom had his hand up.
Yeah, so I had two clarifying questions, right? So I just want to make sure first, are you saying you would be supportive of expanding what's in the charter right now to include the budget? Because it doesn't include the budget right now.
To include the budget.
Yeah, to be able to say,
Power of initiative.
yeah, so you're saying you would support that,
Yeah.
right? Okay. And the other thing is, I was one of the guys who threw out a number. I just want you to know that in my brain, what I'm looking at when I say 8%, I am translating that into what I believe would be the monthly increase in the taxpayers they'd have to pay.
Yeah.
So I didn't just throw out the
No,
number.
no, I get that, I understand that, yeah. I thoroughly understand where, people are coming from, but to put the power of initiative for the budget and clarify that, I could live with that.
Okay, so, go ahead, Phil.
I kind of agree with Zach's, like what you guys just said, include the budget and not put in a percent threshold. However, how do we deal with the timing of it? So at the public hearing's the end of April. Council's got to have a budget by May 20th by state law, I believe. And even the practicality of having a mill rate calculated to send the bills out at the end of June. So if you take let's say you get everybody upset at May 1st and they get 7% for Sheila, they got to verify all that stuff. Well, you got 30 days and then you got 90 days. So this vote wouldn't happen until September at best.
And that's
So
probably why the
what
budget
bill are you sending
isn't.
out to the taxpayers in June?
Right, and that's probably why the budget is not included, but everything else is, because of the time.
Right. So you'd almost have to back up the cycle quite
Yeah.
significant. The budget earlier in the year, squeeze into so much.
All set up.
The Board of Ed budget, was presented last
Yes,
week,
Passed by a
sometimes I
certain
even
date.
think I wish that our council
the
budget
last
could be presented
List is what the tax
a heck of a
bill
lot
goes out
earlier.
the last.
Or
at
least the preliminary.
Turning it out.
Can we have one
Yes,
conversation? I'm sorry.
Oops, sorry.
It's okay. Sorry, Ken.
But to answer that, yes.
All set, Tom?
Yeah.
Nikki?
I just have a question about the referendum. All right, just say we just chose 5%. So when does this go to the voters? Are we in the same position with the initiative, with the timing of everything, with the referendum vote and everything, and all the stuff you have to do now with the voting? I'm just confused like Phil said, with the initiative and
timing of
the
it,
timing of everything, and then with the referendum, with the kickstart that you want to put in there, aren't you going to be behind an 8 ball with the timing of everything?
So the power of initiative takes a lot more time,
Okay,
which is a problem.
Right.
And that's probably why it's not included.
Right,
Under mine,
yes.
we as a council, we know what our budget is way before it goes upstairs, because we've been working on it for months. And if we know it's going to be over whatever number it is, we know we have to get it on for referendum, and we start the process immediately.
And then you won't be penalized with the state with not meeting your budget? That's what I'm asking.
Go ahead, Sheila.
if you introduce referendum, either way, the budget timing in the charter is going to have to be reviewed. Because if you don't have a scheduled referendum date, you now have to notice that for 30 days that you're going to be holding a referendum in 30 days.
Right.
So there's a lot of timing issues. There's also things even under the first power of initiative, if the voters do a petition, they send it back to council, and council says, yeah, we're going to look at this budget again. We agree there's an issue. We're going to put forth a 4%. So what happens then if the voters who petition say, oh, wait a minute, I don't even think 4% is right now. They're petitioning it. Do you see what I mean? Those are lots of issues that would have to be spelled out and addressed, not to say they can't be, but it's gonna be bigger than just a one night
And to
discussion.
avoid that, because time is huge, you're right. That's why I said, if the voters voted no, the budget automatically reverts to the highest number it can before it goes to referendum. So if that number is 6, that's what the budget is. It doesn't go back out like East Windsor. 3 times they vote. After the 3rd time, first select, 2 times, whatever it is.
No, I think 3 times, whatever, I think it's a
Windsor did it
2%
too.
increase.
Right,
Yeah.
automatic, they have it set, so this would be the same thing, you know, the council has the authority to go up to X. Above that, the voters have a right to say no, and if they say no, it goes back to X.
Right.
And that's where me and Mike were going back and forth about a lot of different things. Yes, mine seems pretty simple, but it is pretty simple. And, you know, it puts the burden on us. If we want to hit the taxpayers with a 16% tax increase, they should be noticed, they should know it, and they should have a right to say something about it. And that's my point. Because right now, if you don't turn on ETV, you open your tax bill and say, what the heck is this? And people should have to live their life where they don't have to worry every day or have to go around and collect all these signatures. How much money's, they ain't gonna listen to us. The government never listens to us. We've all heard it. So put the burden on us. I'm willing to take it. So that's why me and Mike came up with, and he wasn't 100% with me, I wasn't 100% with him, but I like his idea better now, the way Sheila explained it to me, but it still doesn't solve the time. Go ahead, Zach.
Thank you.
Wait, were you done, Nikki?
Yeah.
Okay, Zach.
So in regards to the time, I think that's more in the details. So if there is a consensus potentially on Mike's idea, we could potentially have the town attorney or town clerk pull examples of towns that may have implemented this and see if that's something that the council or council liaisons would feel comfortable with in terms of whatever schedule that may alter. Couldn't we get a little more information on that and see what does that look like?
So, well, let's back up because we just spent the last half hour because Tom just asked the 3 of you why you said no. But the rest of us in the room were okay. We weren't okay with the number.
Okay.
So how much time are we gonna back up here? I mean, do we have consensus to go with a trigger? Or do you wanna discuss having the taxpayers do all the work? And
I think that there's an opportunity for the charter commission to expand the vote of how much support in the room you can get. I think that would be beneficial if it's still in the end achieving a relative same goal. I think making it more unified would be beneficial, especially when you're trying to sell this to voters.
what do you mean more unified? How much easier does it get for the voter?
I'm not, in terms of more unified, I mean, if there's 3 people that are not hard nosed on the idea of providing voters this opportunity. So if you can make some legroom towards it, towards having a more unified agreement, I think that would be beneficial in my opinion.
Well, anybody who's on the other side of a conversation is going to say that exact thing.
Well,
It's also called, you could sit here and filibuster, which you didn't, and I respect that, okay? You guys said no. I understand why you're saying no, and I think every voter watching understands why it's a no. But I'm saying to everybody here and everybody watching, if the town of Enfield wants to hit you with a tax increase of 8, 9, 10%, you should have a say. Anything below that, the council should be responsible to make the decision. I am giving the voice back to the people, and that's fair in my eyes. If you guys disagree, you can vote no, and we move on. I think we had a consensus to move forward, and I think we're waiting on Phil. Phil was the low number at 4 or 5%, and Tom was the high number
8%, I was too.
Right, and I tend to lean a little more towards Tom's number because, and 6 would be more comfortable for me if we could compromise at 6. But like I said, having sat through many budgets along with Mike and Bob, 4 is just too tight. It's just, and that's why, Bob, you're right, I did just throw a number out there, but that was just me and Mike talking back and forth, so.
If we went this path of a certain rate, automatic to a vote, do you think we could make it logistically work? Because I heard you say that there's problems both ways.
I'm sorry, what?
Oh, if we
I
did
didn't
go
realize you were
this,
talking to me, I'm sorry.
if we did go this path of at a certain percent increase, there's an automatic voter roll, could we make it work logistically?
I think, yeah, there would have to, either way, there's going to have to be other changes later on when we talk about the budget
Yeah.
process in the charter, where some of those dates will have to be adjusted. Either way you all decide to go. There will have to be other adjustments.
But I mean, you really, if you do it by the percentage, you could do it June 1st and still be, I hate to say, you don't, right? Because May 20th is the latest we do it. You have plenty of time to set, you know, to what we just passed by law, how you have to let people know. And it takes care of your concern about timing. And I understand the timing concern, and it's 30 days. July 1st is our budget turnover.
Council votes, remind me.
May 20th the latest. So that gives you,
Council votes on the budget.
so say
So-
it's May 20th.
So
we
how do
vote
I
for-
notice 30 days? I believe off the top of my head, a referendum not in conjunction with a election is a 30-day notice. So
maybe we
how
have
do
to
I
move it
notice
up,
in the
yeah.
paper 30
Yeah,
days?
So maybe we have to move it
It's
up.
very
a little
tight.
bit.
I think there would have to be some adjustments.
We're gonna know if
Right.
we're in that much trouble.
Right,
I mean,
right,
we're gonna know.
right.
But traditionally, it seems to me the council approves like mid-May 15th, before the 20th. But other towns I've looked around, they approve their budgets back in March, right, April 1st, they do
Right.
it earlier.
Right,
Some towns.
but most councils, they know where about they wanna be. And then we do the math, how do we get there? So if we know we need a new sewer plant, thank you, Mike, already done. We need a new junior high, thank you, Bob, all the way already done. You know, we know something big like that's coming. We know we have to get it to Sheila ASAP to get it on the ballot. I mean, it's just not gonna spring on us.
Would it make sense that the goal would be to approve the budget by April 15th rather than May? And then that sets up, if that were to occur.
I think it'd
you know,
have to be May
referendum.
1st, it'd have to be May 1st, I don't think we get it done by April. May 1st would have to be, I think, the earliest.
Yeah, I don't want to do that math.
Right, we're not gonna, okay, we can work out the details, but again, if we don't have a consensus, there's no sense to work on it. So, Tom, would you come down to 6?
I'm chuckling because if you said when I come down to 7, I'd answer yes. Okay.
Will you go up to 7, Phil?
7?
It needs 6 in the room to pass, or it's nothing.
No, wait,
7's better than 16.
yeah. 7 will work.
Tom, 7. Nikki?
7.
Mike?
I'm willing to compromise, yep.
Yes.
Zach? For the record,
7%?
7%.
Yes.
Wow.
Bob?
No.
Laura?
No.
Okay, so we have 2 noes and 7 yeses. So it passes.
Well done.
Automatic referendum if the town council goes with a 7% or more referendum, budget. The voters get a say. All right, I'd like a motion to adjourn. I appreciate everybody staying late.
Motion to adjourn.
Well done, everybody.
All in favor?
Well done, everyone, good debate.
All in favor to adjourn?
Yes.
Thank you.
Bye.
Sheila.